So I will say this. There's two things that will have affected me, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. So the day after, my phone rang, and it was Botham Jean's brother. And at first I didn't believe it was him. And then something told me, and I just, I don't know if y'all are religious or not, because at that time I would have thought people were pranking me. But something told me, and I believe it was a hand of God. Listen to this guy. Don't hang up on him. And then he started talking, and I started to figure out this really is his brother. And he said, my mom is coming in. Would you like to talk to her? And I said, absolutely. Please let me talk to her. And, I wasn't going to have any answers for her because I didn't have any answers. I needed to tell her that the members of the Dallas Police Association, the members of the Dallas Police Department are sorry that this was not, he did not deserve to die. I saw the most touching moment of grace that I have ever seen in my life when that young man, his little brother, asked to hug Amber. How is a person that young have such a giving heart to understand the guilt and the pain that is placed upon Amber, that believe that maybe she did pull that trigger, but she's regretted every moment, since then. You could see that. And he felt that he needed to relieve her of some of that pain by giving her a hug. And kudos to the judge for allowing it and then taking the beating afterwards. I mean, who in their right mind could say she shouldn't have done that and not given her a Bible? I mean, what society have we turned into that it's throw stones, and hang them all without any compassion whatsoever? I mean, lives were ruined out of this. And to watch that young man with the fullest of hearts, and I believe God laid hands on him and said, I'm going to help heal you. I'm going to help heal Amber. But moreover, the millions of people that saw that either live or afterwards on video, and I think it showed everybody watching that bad things can happen, but out of those bad things, people can show compassion for each other. That's what humans are supposed to do. And I tell this to people all the time who promote and don't want to train. I say, hang on a second. Do you think you're a good cop? They'll always say yes. Well, how do you think you got that way? Somebody had to show you how to be a good cop. You owe it to the department to do the same thing to people behind you. So I wanted to train, and I'm glad I did, because managing people is the hardest thing to do. How do you lead a organization where the majority, like 60% of your membership are working the streets every day? How do you sit there and say, I know what you're going through. I can represent you when you're not doing what they're doing? How do you understand that? You can't. And so I felt that I owed it to them that, they saw me at jail. They saw me doing traffic stops. They saw me doing the same work as everybody else. I chose to put that in front of my family. The mission, the premise of this organization is we have individuals that risk their life every single day for somebody they have absolutely no contact with or know, and they don't care. They could care less what color they are. They're doing it because it's their calling. Get involved in things outside of this department, even if it's just coaching your kids' soccer team, basketball team, baseball team. Find the human side of police work or of living, because this job, this profession, if you let it, it will kill you, whether physically, emotionally, relationship-wise. Find something else out there to believe in other than this profession. It's just a job. It's not who you are.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
and we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
Great leaders are almost always great simplifiers who can cut through argument, debate, and doubt to offer a solution everybody can understand. Colin Powell. Today we are sitting down with a true leader for the Dallas Police Department and someone who made a difference, not just for their own reputation or career growth, but for an entire department. The Dallas Police Department. The Dallas Police Association was formed in 1959 by a small group of courageous officers that saw the rank and file needed a voice for the masses. The DPA forefathers suffered through denied promotions, retaliation from bosses, and experienced the ire of the city of the Dallas government. Just who the hell do these police officers, these public servants, think they are? Who are they to stand up to the city and the department to protect their officers? The legend George E. Butler stood up and answered these questions. We are the Dallas Police Association, and we are here to stay. The first president, George E. Butler, helmed the association for 6 years. Then Thurber Lord, Dan Talkington, Preston Parks, Charles Burnley, the 80 Saw Bobby Dell, Danny Hickman, James Ramsey, and then the first ever female president, Monica Smith. Glenn White took the reins and served for 16 years before Ron Pinkston took the keys. Then in 2016, the wheel of the association was handed over to today's guest. This is a story of a young man moving from South Texas to start a career in Big D, going to God's country, Southeast, and being part of an amazing 3080 drug squad, to enter in the fight for the men and women of the Dallas Police Department. We will hear the journey of this dope chaser growing to become a president and enduring pension issues, fight for pay, July 7th, taking shots from activists like no other. The listener will take a huge peek behind the curtain of Sergeant Mike Mata. From the moment he walked in the doors at 725 North Jim Miller until he turned the keys into the Dallas Police Association headquarters, the George E. Butler building. Mike Mata, badge 7313. Welcome to the stage. Finally,
yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been asking you for like 3 years to come on, and finally.
Well, I always kept saying, when is the appropriate time, and I think now that I'm retiring is probably the best time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we made it happen. You may change but before this airs, you may change your mind about retiring and just retract those papers. I mean, we'll still air it anyway. But
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, right. If I want to stay married, I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got Dallas Police Association President Mike Mata, the Sergeant of Dallas Police. Longtime friend. We started at Southeast. He was already at Southeast. Already had a reputation when I got there in '97. We also have Detective John Valdez from Homicide. You heard him in an earlier episode. Daniel Canetti's here on the mic. We dragged him back. And Sergeant Kent Wolverton's always here. Sergeant Figueroa of the Wellness Unit's hanging out. And I'm ready to get into this, Mike.
Let's do it.
All right. Tell the listener where you grew up.
I grew up in Houston. Went to middle school, elementary school, and all that during that time. Had a great childhood, really did. Had great parents, brother and sister. We like normal brother and sisters. We beat the hell out of each other for quite a few years, and then it was time to grow up and go to college.
Houston Oilers fan?
I was.
Yeah.
I was until they moved, and then they were dead to me.
Yeah.
So, I cut them off, and my brother is trying very hard, has been for years, to try to flip me to the Texans, but ain't having it.
Well, no, I love the Oilers. I liked Warren Moon, and he had those three badass receivers there. At the time, they were the only ones running shoot at the time, putting up Madden football numbers.
Well, I'm
for
gonna go.
stats.
I'm gonna go old school.
Well,
I was with
Earl
the gamblers.
Campbell.
No,
Yeah,
see, so
yeah.
the run and shoot started with the gamblers.
That's
Now,
right.
My dad used to take us to those games all the time because I was a cheap ticket. My dad was really cheap, so you could get that ticket for like $5. You're in the building, and that was a really fun game to watch. And then as they folded, it then folded over to the Oilers picked up that offense and it became what they were. So. They loved it when we did the old kick in the door when we were this close to the Super Bowl, didn't make it, and then, like I said, they moved, and that's it. Turned my back on them.
They pissed away like a 30-something point lead at halftime
Whoa.
against the Bills, right?
Whoa!
I watched it. I was mad. I was.
Yeah, what's funny is I was driving back to college, and I could pick up the radio as I left Houston, so I went to school up at Tech. And that was like a 12.5-hour, 13-hour drive. So I'm listening to the game, and we're up by 30 points. Well, and it was going in and out, so it was bothering the hell out of me. So I just turned it off, and I'm like, oh, we got this.
Yeah.
And then I get to Lubbock, and I get to the apartment, and my roommates, who are also from Houston, they're just kicking dogs and cats all over the place. And we lost. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I felt like a Buffalo Bill.
They had
fan.
no Mike Rozier, I think, was the running back, and
Yeah.
they did not. Yeah, they couldn't run out the clock. And some spare backup come back and beat them for the Bills.
Well, and you do that prevent defense, right? Just prevents you from winning.
It prevents you from winning. So I always tell people that you better give some shout outs and mentions, because when people hear this, your friends and your family, they're going to let you know if you miss them. I promise.
Right.
I know your brother Henry.
Yeah.
So talk about your parents and your siblings.
Yeah, name everybody that you ever
better
met.
that I
name 'em.
ever knew, right? Well, I
They
tell
will
you
let
what,
you know.
I was very fortunate. Like I said, I was very fortunate to have amazing, amazing parents. It's funny when you're a kid and you're growing up, and you get in trouble for this or that and the other. You sitting there crying in your room or pouting. I'm never going to treat my kids like this. I'm never going to be a parent like that. And I hope I'm half the parent that my mom and dad were. So my mom is still around. And is having the time of her life in retirement. Unfortunately, my father passed away in early 2000s, which has always been, very hard on me. We were very, very close. And, everybody says I'm the spitting image of him, which I'm very proud of that. He gave me he gave me my receding hairline and my bushy eyebrows. But anyway, one of the heartbreaks is that he never got to see me get married to my wife, and never got to see my kids. So, that's one heartbreak, but great parents, really were very involved, all our sports, very hands-on. I have an older sister who is, I won't say her age because she'll get all mad about that, but she's a couple.
24?
She's a few
24 years old?
Yeah, just a few years above me. Just an amazing, amazing person, amazing woman. And then my brother, Henry, who's a doctor. I'm very proud of him. And he's always kind of been, not just my older brother. And we were I think they call them Irish twins because we were only like 13 months, 14 months apart. Obviously, my dad didn't listen to the doctor. So we kind of almost grew up like twins. And it didn't help that my mom dressed us alike. But we've always been very, very close. And so he's always kind of been like a mentor to me, even though we were so close in age. And so I'm just very fortunate. I've had a great family growing up.
Would you decide to go to Tech? What got you there?
Oh, this is a pretty good story. Right. So my brother was at A&M. And when I was a junior and a senior, I used to go visit him all the time on the weekends, go to the football games, have a great time. Well, I was with him one time, and, we're having a good time. We're about to go to the game, and we have some folks over. And my mom and dad just showed up. They just knock at the door. I go to the front door, look through the people. There's mom and dad. I'm like,
thought it was an intervention.
I guess.
Yeah.
And I, right then and there, I said, "Hey, Henry, mom and dad are here." And he's like, "I didn't know they were coming." It was close enough, Houston, that they could just drive there. So I said, "No. If they're going to come see me, they're going to have to work to come see me. I'm going to go a little bit farther. I need a little more length." And so, I decided to go to Tech. I had two really good friends who were a year ahead of me who went to Tech, so that kind of had a lot of play in it. But I was very glad that I went to the Panhandle. Some really, really good people up in that West Texas area.
It's a good party town there.
Well, you ain't got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Or, what are you going to go to Amarillo? Go to Big Texan. That's the party. It's about all you got.
Close to the Marfa Lights. You can go out there and watch that.
They say about Tech, either you love it or you hate it. There's no middle ground.
Right.
And I truly did love it. Had a good time.
Go Raiders.
Yeah.
So I want to get into, when did you decide to get into law enforcement? How did that get on your radar?
Well, it kind of, believe it or not, Tech had a little something to say into that. So I was pre-med because I wanted to be like my brother. My brother's a doctor. And then I started
turn back time.
Well, and then I started taking a couple classes, and some of those classes you ain't gonna make it with C's. You definitely ain't gonna make it with D's. And so, once you're in a university and you're getting up to 100, 105 hours, and you have not figured out what you're going to do in life, they kind of tell you, you need to do something here. And so, I've always kind of thought about policing, and then I decided, I think that's really something more my style. So that's when I decided to transfer, and I transferred to Sam Houston and did a real quick a year and a semester. And I was out. I had plenty of hours. I just needed to do my core classes, law enforcement. And next thing you know, I'm graduated from Sam Houston on my way to San Antonio.
Did you have other agencies in your?
Yeah, I was
radar?
actually in the San Antonio Police Academy when I got hired to Dallas. And I have an.
You were in the academy, so you left and.
Yeah, I did.
You just left your book sitting there and walked out.
I did 2 academies back to back, and it was kind of cool, I will say, because I got to compare the two, and they're completely different. I had a cousin who was SAPD, and I told him that Houston had called me because I had applied at the same time, and it just took Dallas a long time to call me, and. So I told my cousin about it, and he said, "Look, Mike, I'm gonna be honest with you," because he had did a lot of research before he picked San Antonio PD, and he said, "Man, if you're looking at making police a career, if that is your profession, you need to go to Dallas. They've got a much better pension." Yeah, look where we are now, right? And so, which at the time they really, really did. I mean, you topped out like at 65, 70%, I think, at most in San Antonio, where here, you could get to 90.
Mm-hmm. So we had drop.
Yeah, and you had drop and all that. And so he said, man, if that's what you're going to do, that's where you need to go. So next thing you know, I packed up and called Dallas, and they said, can you be here Tuesday? I guess I'm there on Tuesday. So, so I was 4 weeks from graduating, 5 weeks from graduating in San Antonio, and came to Dallas and got in the academy here.
So you were in the middle of their academy. At that point, did you already get a TCLEOS? TCLEO? Really?
It was TCLEOS at that time. Yeah,
okay.
I already had my license, so I didn't even have to take the state exam once I got here. But I still had to take the weekly test, and that was the big difference between San Antonio and Dallas. San Antonio followed the DPS protocol of academy, so it was very, very physical. Very physical. I mean,
DPS. I mean, they've had people die in that training.
They put it on you, man. They broke my nose, and and there in San Antonio, if you get hurt, you're out. I mean, they'll keep you a slot for a job, but you're out till you're healed. You come back, they put you back in, start all over again. So it was pretty much, went home to my uncle, and he just said, "Hold on, hold still," and slapped my nose and straightened it out, and we're going back to work. But like I said, it was very, very physical there. Not very academically strong, but very physical. When you get here in Dallas at the time, it wasn't really physical. It was more academic strong.
Who were some of the instructors there that you remember?
Oh man, I had Tom Popkin.
Great Tom Popkin.
Which, man, I just remember those heavy hands. I mean, when he put his hands on you, you felt those mitts come on you. And then maybe y'all remember, who was the real tall
Mumford?
No, real tall white guy with the salt and pepper hair. He looked like he should have been in Lonesome Dove. And he had the mustache.
Shepherd? Not Shepherd.
No. Golly, real skinny guy, but tall. I swear he looks like he should have been on Lonesome Dove.
No, Hathaway.
Yeah. Hadaway? Anyway, he was. I just can't believe.
Was there a female too that was all jacked?
That was Dee Dee.
Dee Dee, yeah.
Yeah, that was Dee Dee. And she walked like.
Oh,
this.
she was a tank. Yeah,
Man.
she like Johnny Crook with a wig.
Hey, if she's watching this, that wasn't Mike Motter.
Don't worry. Nobody listens anyway, Mike.
Time
Nobody's going
mark.
to tune in.
Time mark. We'll do an edit.
We'll do that in the intro. No, I was kidding. When I got it, what year was that?
That was 95.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I got on in January '97, those folks were already left. I didn't get to experience that, but I heard they were tough, hard
Yeah,
asses.
they had there was like a real big turnover right after our academy.
Yeah.
Left. But yeah, they were tough. They were tough, and they had no qualms about putting it on you.
Oh yeah. There was a lot of big runners.
Big runners, and they didn't care about feelings. They did not care about feelings, and we, I don't know what was the old chief, a little Hispanic that was married to Perez,
Gloria Perez. Yeah.
Ooh, man, she let you have it. I mean, she was all 5'1", but man, she would verbally break you down. I mean, a grown man just break down crying when she went into you.
What was her role out there? Because when I went through, she in '97, she was the proctor. Okay.
That's what she was, the test taker, the test proctor, whatever. But man, we had those prep. On Friday you'd have like a little prep class.
Oh yeah.
And, if she just didn't like you, man, she was just like, I don't even know why you're asking questions. You're so stupid. You're not going to pass. And you're just looking at these poor guys over there going, because, a lot of these guys came out of the military or whatever. They hadn't taken tests like, weekly exams like that in a very long time. And so, us that came out of college, we were kind of okay with it. We figured it out. It took them a while, man. And she didn't hold back, man. She just cut them off at the knees.
Well, I remember those tests, and I've talked about it before on this show about how hard those tests were. And you coming from San Antonio, you said it was more physical. When you got here and saw these tests, what'd you think of that?
I be honest with you, I thought coming here, since I already took the TCOL exam, I didn't think I'd have to take the tests. And then when I got here, weekly tests. And then when I got here and they said, no, sunshine, you're with everybody else. And, at that time, there wasn't no 3 tries and you're out. It was like you fail the test, you get 1 retest, and it wasn't an average. If you didn't pass that one, you're gone.
You're packing your shit. You're getting out, going home.
Yeah, and so, there's a lot of stress on a lot of guys and girls. So, once I buckled down and figured that out, I finished pretty high in my class academically.
Yeah, well, I did not. I was the closest I ever got. I mean, I got a 70 on one. It terrified me. No, 71. And, man, I had to really study hard because those are really hard. They're hard tests. They're not – in the physical part, we had Mumford and Judge. We were their first classes, so they were they didn't like to run. So thank God, because they were more about working out with weights, which was I enjoyed that. But
you were right. It's Billy Hadaway.
Billy Hadaway. Okay,
shout
out.
That dude could run, and he could run. That long-legged antelope looking.
Well, there was who was the blonde senior corporal that was out there? There was also, and she was known to be really. She was a hard ass too as well.
She was a runner.
There was a blonde and a brunette, and they were both runners. They were on the DPD running team.
Just ran you onto the ground.
In the ground.
What are some of your classmates?
Oh man, Wante is my classmate.
I saw him yesterday.
And then Fred Frazier is my class. Ruben Ramirez is in my class. Tracy Jones is in my class. Armin was in my class. God, he's gonna get mad. What is he? Skinny black guy. I mean, he talks like this. He cracks me up, man. And I mean, he's a $105, just soaking wet.
Is he still on the department?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Glasses.
Yes.
Came to the academy with a Caprice Classic.
Yes, this dude had it was a Cadillac. It was like a '74 Cadillac.
Oh, the real long. Yeah.
Yeah, it only had 2 doors, but it had 3 zip codes.
In there.
Yeah, like somebody was going to steal the thing. Like I said, it had 2 doors, 3 zip codes. It was huge, man. But we loved it because when we go to lunch, almost a whole class could fit in that car. And,
in the trunk.
Yeah, we always made him drive.
5 bodies in the trunk.
Yeah, he goes, "Hey, man, what's going on, man?" He talked like that, and I loved him, man. He was funny. But man, that's a hand sweating joker, man. You shake his hand, better get ready. That thing's gonna slide right off.
It's like he just did hand sanitizer.
Oh yeah. His name will pop in my head, but we had some really good characters in our class. We had a good time.
So, what was Dallas PD's reputation whenever you were in the academy? Like,
tough.
Okay.
Yeah, tough. And it's much more touchy-feely now. We didn't have any touchy-feely classes, not at all. And it was just a different world of policing at that time. There was no such thing as community policing. Yeah, community policing was putting bad guys in jail. And we all felt like that. And it wasn't. I don't think that's so much of a negative. It was just a one singular thought profession: find the bad guy, put the bad guy in jail.
Arrest your way out of the
Yeah, lower crime by
problems.
simply putting bad guys in jail, and and that is a big part of policing. But we have learned since it's not the only part if you're going to be effective.
Where, when you were graduating, where did you want to go? What division?
Southeast.
Oh, you want to go there? Why is that?
Well, you talk to everybody in the academy. It's funny. I did a recruit class yesterday, and it was much different. It was funny. It's the same class that I was in. They were just facing a different direction. But I think there was 14 in the class. And we had
wow,
like
that's
40.
small.
We had like 44
Yeah.
in ours. I mean, we were. I almost said something. You probably have to. We're like butt to butt. In our class.
We have an explicit tag. You're good.
Okay. Well, we were like nuts to butts in that
Yeah.
class. I mean, we were elbow to elbow shoved in our class, and then they could have laid out in their class. But I told them, I said, I think we all know that the academy was nothing but a big high school. That's what it felt like. There was no secrets in there. It was nothing was going to stay secret very long. So I mean, I really enjoyed it. I really did.
Looking back, I wish I'd have enjoyed it more, appreciated it more, as opposed to just wanting to get the hell out of there, because it was fun. You're getting paid, pretty decent to sit in class and have fun with friends and make lifelong friends in there.
Well, at the time, I suppose. I mean, I look back at it.
Oh.
We made $26,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I thought that was rich. I was like living
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But you're right. Nowadays they get paid a very good salary to 8 to 5, weekends off, holidays, and you just got to pass a test. And it's not even pass. You just got to average a 70. I mean, we'll talk about
It's real
that
easy
later.
now, right? Real easy.
Well, it's just I think they, like every city, it's so hard to hire. It's almost like you have to really, really mess up to get terminated from police departments, academies now. They just can't afford it, and there's positive and negatives of that. But it is what it is. It's the world we live in right now.
So talk about when you got to Southeast. Who trained you? Who did you start riding with, and what kind of work did you like?
Well, it's funny. Southeast has got a history of just razzing people, And so I remember the
Not
first.
familiar with it, no.
Yeah, when I remember the first day I showed up, there's 2 doors at Southeast, and they're magnetic door or locked doors. I don't know if they're magnetic, but you could only open them from the inside. So I went to one side of the door, and I'm waiting there. I'm standing. I got my bag. I'm loaded down. I got my uniforms and my bag and all that, and nobody's opening the door. Everybody's going out the other door, right? So
Yeah,
I'm
look at this guy blocking this door.
I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this door's broke. My dumbass. This door's broke. So then I go over to the other door, and I'm holding all my stuff because, of course, it shuts on me. Well, now everybody goes out the other door and is leaving me standing there. So finally, a supervisor comes by and has a little pity on me and opens the door and lets me in. And I was like, I think I'm at the right place. He goes, oh, no, you're at the right place. Come on in here and get dressed and get out here and do some work.
Welcome to Southeast.
Exactly. Great station, though. I mean, it's where I wanted to go.
What type of work did you gravitate to, and who trained you?
The funniest thing is Mark Terry is kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I had 3 really good trainers. I like to tell recruits, in the academy, look, you're gonna have 3 trainers, and more than likely, you're probably gonna have 2 of the 3 that you really like, right? Get what you like from each of them, and then create who you want to be. And you might have one that you don't want to be like. Well, now you know who you don't want to be. But I always tell them, if you can make 36, 38 weeks in the academy, you can make 7 with anybody. Because, we've had officers who have quit on training because they couldn't get along with their trainer. Well, I kind of looked at it. That's probably best for them, because if they can't get along with a jackass that's sitting next to them, they're going to have a real hard time in the field. So it's probably best that they did find their way out. But, I had one particular trainer that, man, he could cuss. He would cuss out the Pope. He would cuss out the
Bill
Pope.
Maloney?
No,
okay.
that would. No, I don't want to go down that road. But he knew every general order. He knew every personnel rule. I mean, he really was a great trainer. He was really good at writing reports. He just had a mouth on him, And then I had Danny Hallbrook, which I got a really good story about him, but it's probably not something we can put on the radio. By the way,
You go ahead and tell it. I'll just edit it.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
This episode. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay, so what you can put on the air is when he was training me, he, like I said, he loved it. He was talking on his phone all the time to his girlfriend, wife, whatever. And he was a very excited trainer. I mean, he'd yell at you, and as he's yelling at you, he's got that lisp, and it's just, man, it's just all over the side of your, just spit. And you're driving, you can just feel it raining on you. I'm like, this is so nasty, and he just keeps yelling at you. He just keeps yelling at you, and it just keeps hitting you in the face. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just waiting. Can we please get to this location faster? Well, I finally got him back unknowingly. On St. Augustine, there's a real big dip, and I was a rookie. I didn't know, so I'm humming down this thing at about 65, 70 miles an hour. I hit that dip, and Danny's on the phone while we're going code 3, yelling at me, spitting on me, but he's on the phone talking to his girlfriend, whatever. And when we hit that dip, man, his head hit that ceiling. I thought I broke his neck. Did
that top go like on Harry and the Hendersons when that?
Yeah, he
looked
looked like Dino, man. He just popped his head through the roof, whatever, man. But man, he was mad at me, and I swear for weeks he was rubbing his neck. God damn it, my God damn it.
Well, the training. It's funny you mentioned that the training style back then, and there were some hard ass trainers that literally would cuss you out.
In a second.
Yeah, and yell and scream at you. That Danny, I mean, you had some hard trainers.
Yeah.
Danny got kind of beaten down on training, but hell, Jose Aranda did as my classmate. There was some he had a rough go.
Yeah, it's funny because you'd pull into the Sally Port after you just get whooped down, and you'd look over in the squad car next to you, and someone else is a rookie or was in your class
having fun,
and they're or not, they're looking the same as you, just beat down because the trainer's like, take me back to the station right now. I'm just tired of you.
Oh yeah.
Or they just drive off and leave you sitting there.
Yeah, I heard that one too.
Yeah.
And I mean, on the flip side of that, I had Warren Mitchell also, who is the most professional. Truly the most professional officer I have ever met in my life. From the day that I met him as a trainer to the day he walked out of here and retired, he is the epitome of the most, just his presence and the way he talks. And I always laugh because I used to tease him and call him Soul Train, because when I'm in the car with him, I'm driving, same thing. He's in the passenger seat and he's talking on the phone. He's real soft. He talks like this on the phone where I can barely hear him, right? And he leans over in the side, all lean back talking. And I used to make fun of him. I'm like, man, who you over there talking to, all Soul Train and all? And he used to be in a church band. I don't know if y'all know, they used to play bass in a church band. Well, he used to date who's the singer that broke up the
Tony Braxton. He dated her?
Yes. All right. Wow. And so I'm like, he's talking to her, whatever. And I said, man, who do you talk to all the time, whatever? He goes, you ain't gonna believe me. And I said, okay, who? And he finally went back and he finally told me, Tony Braxton. I said, man, you lie, because she was small.
Oh yeah.
And unchanged my heart. That's all used to go in my head, man. And
she was like 4'11".
I don't know. Yeah. It wouldn't matter. I mean, what am I, 5'6"? Bring it on.
No, hey, tower over.
Hey, we would have made a 4'2". Right. But anyway, so he's telling me it did. I'm like, you're full of shit. He goes, no. So next time she calls, he just hands me the phone, and I'm like, is this Tony Braxton? And man,
she starts singing. That
sultry voice hit, and I was like, I almost fell out the car, just melted right there. And right from there on, I always tease Warren, you are the smoothest player I've ever met in my life. But yeah, he was probably the most influential as far as who I truly wanted to imitate. As far as, man, he could take the worst throwdown that you show up to, family violence, and in 3 or 4 minutes, he'd have every woman there swooning by just talking to him. Had it all under control. And I said, man, that's the kind of cop I want to be.
So you mentioned you almost fell out of the car.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting video that I saw one time of an officer in a field.
You too, huh?
Yeah.
You too?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty viral video at this point of a young officer in a Class A uniform chasing down a squad car, or not even a squad car, but diving through the window of a car.
It was going through the neighborhood, and it went over the curb and went into the park.
Yeah.
And then someone Supermaned, in uniform, Superman through the
Can you tell us
driveway.
what happened on that?
Oh yeah, we used to have so much fun. I mean, I truly, how people say, you couldn't, I'd do this for free. I literally would have done this job for free during those years. I mean, we were having such a good time. And, we didn't even realize how dangerous the work we were doing really was. It truly was a cat and mouse game, us catching them. It was the black hats versus the white hats, the good guy versus the bad guy, the old cowboy kind of idea, thinking. But anyway, so on that particular, we could still chase cars. We still could do car chases. And man, this was one heck of a car chase. We were in it, and it was going for a long time. It's so long that I think it was Fox helicopter, whatever, got above us. And, I think Rudolph, it would be Rudolph. I think Rudolph got on the radio and said, hey, just be aware of Fox, there's a helicopter above us, and it ain't DPD. So anyway, we're going down 175. We get into the projects, and this car is kicking it. So it's just kicking hubcaps off left and right because it's just driving way out. Well, it jumps a curb, and it ends up in a playground of the projects, right? And there was kids around. And so good, bad, or indifferent, whatever, it was so soggy that this wheel started spinning on this car. So it was kind of half stuck, moving, not moving. And so somewhere in between my ears, it seemed like a good idea to jump out of my car, jump through the passenger window of this car that was spinning car, jump through the window, assess the situation, right, as I did, deliver some palm heel strikes and some departmental approved takedown techniques, and next thing you know, we're dragging everybody out of the windows. And it's probably one of the coolest things that I've ever done.
I need to get that because I need to post it whenever we.
It's on VHS.
Yeah.
I saw it on
VHS. VHS.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to convert.
We'll find it.
I got it.
What's even more amazing is there was never a general order made after this.
No.
Nothing about vehicle pursuits while on foot or anything.
Yeah, and
or entering a moving vehicle, a suspect vehicle. That's going.
So the problem was though is it's one of those things when you do something by accident, it looks cool as hell, right? But then when you try to do it, don't work out so well.
No.
So I tried to do it again a few weeks later, and I misjudged my jump, and I hit the driver's side door jamb right across the top of my head, knocked me smooth out, man.
Knocked that hairline all the way back.
Man, it knocked me smooth out. And, Jack Misak was our sergeant at the time. He goes, you feel real stupid now, don't you, dumbass? And I'm like, when I woke up.
Yeah.
But, I
remember hearing that.
I could feel Danny Hallbrook in the back of my head going, see? Because for weeks I was rubbing the back of my neck.
Right.
And,
but how cool was it to catch it on video? Like, not somebody's phone video or back then a camcorder shaking. It was actually a news helicopter.
I will say, you always want to feel kind of cool to your peers, and so a lot of people had seen that video, and it got to the point that in the academy, when I started teaching at the academy, the recruits had heard about the video, and so usually I wouldn't show it till the end, till we were like in fourth phase. I would say, okay, I'll show you, and I would show them the video until our sergeant at the time at the academy, John Lawton, heard about me showing the vehicle or the video, and he caught me showing it one time after he told me not to show it. And so I kind of got my ass chewed a little bit there, but it was well worth it. Me and John go way back. He's a great guy.
Oh, he's a good dude.
Oh, he's a great guy.
So the first time I met you, you were instructing at the academy. I don't even remember what you were teaching, but you walked in, and we all had to wear Class A uniforms back then. So
right.
My pencil rolls off my desk right as you're walking by, and I bend over to pick up my pencil. And I put it back on my desk, and I'm just sitting there. And you said, "What are you looking at? Are you looking at my boots because they're not shined?" No, I work the streets. I work at Southeast, and you just gave it to me. just telling me how bad you were. And I was like, this jerk. It's just dressing me down, right? Like, I'm just sitting there. I dropped my pencil.
I did his background.
Yeah, no, 100%. Valdez got me there. And then you went up and finished whatever presentation. And I was like, this guy's got to be the biggest jerk on the department. He's probably going to end up my trainer one of these days.
You got lucky.
Yeah. It would have been hilarious because I would have told you the story then too.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those. That was the culture back then. Was your dirty boots at Southeast was kind of a
badge of honor.
mark of your work. Yeah.
It was, and I think it's funny now because now we have to do line inspections.
Right.
And I'm like, well, shit, I'm about to leave, so I don't give a shit. I just think, here we are trying to increase morale, right? Why are we beating people down for the littlest of things? I would, is it great to have good officer presence? Absolutely. But I care more about what comes out of their mouth than what their damn boots look like. you know. And so if we're going to have anything, you know, let's worry about the bigger picture problems and stop beating down with the little problems, because it looks like you're just finding something to pick on. We got enough of those, you know, problems here on this department. So
Yeah, my boots are like gravedigger boots. They're all filthy and unshaven.
But you know, people in the community, you know, let's just, you know, they look at your shoes and they know, okay, that's a worker, that's not a worker.
Yeah.
You know, you got somebody with the shiny shoes every single day. That's not somebody who's going to get dirty. You know, you got a cop that shows up with a scuffed up boot and whatever. You know, the bad guy who's got his hands on the car, he knows that cat's going to chase me.
Well, how did you get out to the academy? And I'm kind of Danny's class was the first one. How did you get out there? Why'd you go out there?
You know,
you've been a street cop for years.
Yeah, I was on the street for I think 11 years.
Because
like
the
that.
rumor it was in our classes, you got in trouble and got put out there because you were very vocal about not wanting to be out there.
No, not at all. To be honest with you, I was at Central, and I was on days with the Italian guy, Jay Angelino, which I don't know if you know Jay. You know, he's since retired, but he's straight out of the Bronx. I mean, just, you know, just horrible. He let me get my ass kicked by a crackhead female one time, and just sat there watching me. Come on, Mike, show me some of that DT shit you do, whatever. You know, just laughing at me, you know, in a Goodfellas voice, or whatever. But great guy. But anyway, I was at Central, and they didn't have anybody to be the advisor for this new class. And so Sergeant came up to me and said, "Hey, Mike, you know, you're kind of low man on the totem pole. You know, we need somebody to go out there." And I was like, "Well, you know, okay, it's weekends, you know, 8 to 5 weekends off. You know," I was like, "All right, I'll give it a try." You know, so I did. I went out there kind of reluctantly. It wasn't for any trouble or anything like that. But I tell you what, as soon as I got out there, I figured real quick that this was my niche. I think I really enjoyed it.
You realized that right away?
Yeah, I really did. Because, you know, and I will say this, you know, I think maybe it was a little bit of breakout day, right? And I'm watching, you know, obviously they used to do it different than how I did it. But I just kind of got into the fact that, look, I'm looking at a room of, you know, 40 people that have no idea what they're getting into, from completely all different walks of life, completely different beliefs, completely different, and then we're shoving them all in a room. And it was different when I was one of them to when now I'm watching somebody else. And, you know, I kind of said, like, you know, hey, I think I kind of might like this thing. And, you know, so much so is that I was an advisor, and the staff there were like, "Mike, you know, can you help us out? Because, you know, we don't have a lot of instructors, you know." And I had already taken the peace officer instructor course. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I just caught on to it. I enjoyed it. And so about halfway through, man, I really, really thought, you know, I started getting more involved in the DT room. Because you know, this is the biggest thing. I wanted the class to respect me, and not so much respect me because they liked me, but I wanted them to respect me because I was willing to do everything they were doing. If I'm going to yell at you to do something, then I'm going to be willing to do it too. So, you know, when they would dress out, I would dress out, and I would see other advisors just kind of stand on the wall. And I'm like, no, because I knew I wasn't going to be the fittest guy. I wasn't going to finish first, but I sure as shit wasn't going to be last. And so I just started doing things with them. And, you know, I think it made the class come together better. It definitely, I got to know them better. I think they respected me a little bit more. So when I did have to get on them, you know, I think they took it a little bit better.
Yeah. So, Kent, your first time meeting Mike, imagine that every day for the first 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I was rough.
He came on actually a little later. We started the academy class, and then I think he came on like 2 months later.
Yeah, somebody bailed for some reason.
Yeah, so you were thrown in. So the vibe we got the whole time was you didn't really want to be there necessarily, but you were going to do it, and you let us know you were from Southeast. And so you talk about respect, but I think at the beginning there was a lot of people who were just kind of put off, but there was respect.
Yeah.
And you talk about those things that you did, and it was funny to see the change over time. We realized you were being a hard ass on us because you actually did care. And it was almost like everyone changed, including you, in that academy class. But by the end, we really felt like you were family with us. And I think we all cared that you were proud of us for graduating. Like, we wanted to earn your approval at the end.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I every class I had after that, because they actually offered me a position at the academy after I finished with them. I compared every class I had after that to my first class because we had a very smart class, and we had a very athletic, for the most part, class.
A lot of experience in the military.
Yeah,
it was a good class.
It was one of the first classes that had a huge bump in military, people in it. And so, it was almost like, usually it used to be like when I came through, we had one or two military guys and everybody else was civilian. Well, now it was starting to get more heavy military, which was good because it kind of got the civilians to kind of think that paramilitary form of
rank and structure
of rank
order.
and file that, you had to have. Again, I love that class, man. I had a great time with them. I guess I was a little bit rough in the beginning, and I guess maybe because I just saw them as soft. To be honest with you,
we knew that too.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I probably went there a little too early in my career, maybe because I was still a little, you're never going to be good enough like us kind of mentality.
I think we kind of brushed over some stuff that we need to get back to also.
Okay.
The type of work that you were drawn to early in your career.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly busting calls out as fast as I could.
In order to go play?
No, not in order so that other people could go play, right? Because I was still new, and that was my job, was to shut up and go answer their calls so they could do stuff. But somebody had the audacity to send out the citywide message or the channel-wide message of, hey, go ahead and knock all these calls out. Fat boy needs to eat. And back then you could see how many calls somebody had answered. And I look up, and it's Mata, and I was like, this guy hasn't answered a single call all day. And the audacity he has, like, to say it's like 4 hours into the shift, he's been in a bush somewhere chasing dope dealers.
Probably went to jail 3 times already.
It was the most hilarious thing in the world, though, because he would do this regularly where he was like, hey, you guys go ahead and knock out all these calls so I can go eat. And I was like, oh, man, I can't wait till I got the moxie to pull that off.
Well, I guess getting back to the work, when I got to Southeast, I got in with a bunch of really, really good guys, Klingel Smith, Phil Elliott,
Dale
Ball, and they were already dope chasers, and that just intrigued me. Because they liked me. And I'll be honest with you, they told me when they first asked me to come over, they wanted me because I could run. And I could run. I was pretty fast for being, short. I was pretty fast, but I could run for a long time. And I ran in college. And so, I could chase somebody down. They may not outrace me, but I'll outrun them. So I'll get them eventually. So that's what they wanted me to do. They would stay in the car and circle while I chased the guy and get on the radio until we went. So that was my job. I was the chaser, and then I fit in most windows because I was a little guy. So, there wasn't a window I pretty much couldn't fit through, So we were in a uniform a drug task force. It's called the 3080s. And what was really funny is my class and John's class were really close together. And so a lot of the recruits that were in my class ended up in the 4040s uniform drug task, and John's class also in the 4040s. And so the 3080s was Southeast and the 4040s was Southwest. And we would often, cross the line on each other's, poaching on each other's sectors.
Yeah, like we didn't have enough on our own.
Yeah, hitting dope houses to where I remember several times we were both watching the same dope house, but we were on different channels. So I'm watching it, and I see all these cops running on the house, and I'm like, I didn't say run, and it wasn't us. It was the 4040s. And they did the same, we did the same thing to them. But
the border right there was pretty
yeah,
pretty
8th Street, there was a lot of drug houses down
Vermont.
there. Yeah. But, we did great work. I'm going to tell you that. I can't even tell you. I remember they put us in for a citation one time because we took like 400 and something guns off the street in 1 year, and a lot of drugs. But, I told this to Phil Elliott because he's on our board. I'm amazed still to this day that over the 3.5 years that we were doing that, we never shot anybody and nobody ever got shot. I don't even remember anybody really getting hurt.
Well, I think Pat Starr and I talked about this. We talk about this often, that we would hit people so hard and so fast they didn't have time to react. And I think we got on top of them before they had a chance to get.
There's
the
something to be
gunfight.
said for that. Definitely.
Yeah.
On the speed,
the shock and awe.
surprise. Yeah.
And but I also think it was a different mindset too. I think you had bad guys who weren't about killing people.
They fought you. They were trying to get away.
Well, it was a game to them. It was just a game to them. They knew at some point selling drugs they were going to get caught. And when they got caught, they got caught. Now they ran and we had to chase him, but they weren't either. Even though there were guns around, nobody really went for the gun. They really just got up and either one, we had to fight them, or two, they ran. And maybe I think that probably built a little too much confidence in hitting the houses like we did. But we did something very, very dangerous. But I will say this: I promise you, we made those neighborhoods way safer by taking that criminal element out of there, because it was off the chain for a long time. It would not be anything out of the ordinary to go to jail 3 or 4 times a night, solid, on nothing but drug arrests.
Well, we would hit like a location in our house, and then like 4 or 5 different two-man elements would take people to jail.
Yeah.
So you take multiple people to jail from one incident 3 or 4 times a night.
Right, and the remaining people of the squad would just go to the next
They
house.
go to find another place, yeah.
Yeah, it's and it was well supported by the command staff, because they
like the numbers.
They loved the numbers, and they knew that there was that criminal element that you had to get off the street. They were killing these neighborhoods, and we were willing to do it, or stupid enough to do it. I don't know however you look at it, but we were really good at it. It was great work. It really did make me, I think, to who I was.
So, at the academy,
Yeah.
you went through San Antonio's academy,
Yeah.
and you went through Dallas's academy,
Right.
Did you take any influence from San Antonio when you came over to actually teach at the academy?
I think so, and I think that's kind of maybe where the beginning of that came. San Antonio was very, very, like I said, they model after DPS. They literally beat the hell out of you, and I see some purpose in that to harden you up, because you got to think about troopers. They're all by themselves in the middle of nowhere, so you got to they focused a lot on boxing, because most of the time you're on your own. You got to hold your weight
In a whole county.
Yeah, and it might take a while for somebody to get to you. And so, again, it was very, very physical in San Antonio. They would literally put you in a pit. And so it was a pit, and you drop you in the pit. And the first time they would put one person against you, and you had to hold your gun, And the one thing you couldn't do, you couldn't punch in the face, and the groin, and the throat. Other than that, it was free-for-all.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. And so they put 3 people on you for 30 seconds. Then they pulled one out. Then they had 2 people on you for 45 seconds. And then they pulled one out. And then they put another one on you for a minute. And that is the longest 30, 45 minute you've ever had in your life. Because, all you're doing is just curling up and holding on. And that's where I got my nose broke. But, it was very, very, very strenuous. And then I got here, and I thought that's how Dallas was going to be, and it wasn't. I mean, it was, you ran a lot, you did a lot of, push-ups and burpees and all that mess, but they didn't really teach you how to really defend yourself.
I remember Mike putting on the red suit, even though that wasn't his job, and wrestling us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the listener, that's a red man, and basically red suit of pads, head to toe.
Where you play the bad guy.
You play the bad guy, and you basically just do scenarios and you fight the rookies.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that came from 3080s, because, like I said, we had to fight a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
And I think I just came from the perspective that it would be very difficult for me to lose somebody that I trained. So if somebody out of Canetti's class, got killed, I would feel somewhat responsible that maybe I could have done something more. And so I was kind of hard on them. But I tell you what, every single officer that left that academy out of that class, I pit them against any class in the academy that they will hold their own. And I was very confident of that. And they've all done an amazing, amazing job on this department.
Now, Bob Owens was out at the academy when you were there, right?
Oh, man, I love me some Bob Owens.
He's got a reputation on this department that is second to none.
To none.
How did he influence you out there? What did you learn from him?
Well, he was all business. And what I loved about him is, we had just gotten out of that college kind of atmosphere, which to me ruined the academy. And so that was the whole purpose, I think, why he got sent there. We needed to get back to tactical, teaching people how to survive and teaching people tactical redress and aggress, And so his military training, his SWAT training, he fit right into that. And he believed, obviously, in a rank and file, chain of command form of leadership. And that's what had been lost at the academy. So I really, really enjoyed working for Bob. He called me in one time because we had a female who she was injured and real bad ankle break. And then she got recycled and she got healed. We brought her back and she was in my class. And we were doing over and under. Y'all remember that? Where you go in, and it's pretty taxing, and we try to pair people up with somebody reciprocally who's close to the same size. We didn't very often put a huge guy on a small person, but her being a female, any male was going to kind of outweigh her, and so we were doing this, and we had already been doing DT for a while anyway. As you get tired, you lose your fine motor skills and you lose concentration. Well, snap, there goes that ankle again. And I felt horrible, man. I felt horrible. And, I went in to tell Lieutenant that, we had an ambulance coming, blah, blah, blah. She got sent off. The next day I come back and, I was a little down about it because I felt personally responsible. I should have kept a better eye on her. I should have had her with somebody else, whatever. And Bob came up to me, Lieutenant Owens came up to me and he said, Mike, let me tell you something. He said, to make a good omelet, every once in a while you got to crack an egg. And it was pretty simplistic, but he's right. Those things are going to happen. If you're really, really training people, accidents are going to happen. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens to some really good people, and that just happened to be with her. Anyway, he was great. He was great, and he brought a lot of innovation.
He already had the
RBT.
SWAT. He was commander over narcotics and SWAT for years before that, so he was so respected by everybody.
He understood the tactical mindset, and we had gotten away from calling officers warriors. Man, that burned my ass when we got away from that, because yes, but there is a point in your career that you're going to have to be a warrior. You've got to have that survival mindset, and he brought back that warrior mindset. He brought RBT into the program. He brought a lot of more hands-on, practical, especially at the range. And his buddy Transu, man, they were peas and carrots because they had the same mindset, and they really did amazing things.
What was your biggest takeaway for you, your personal growth at being out there?
I really, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I am going to be a reserve. And I told Chief Garcia, I don't want to answer calls anymore. I've done all that. I want to go back to the academy, and I want to teach. And it's not going to be in the DT room. The back and these are shot. But I want to go back and teach these recruits because I think I have a different perspective now. Not so much that I think I'll teach better. I think I'll teach different. And it's definitely a different recruit now than we had. There's different wants and needs. With us, it was all about, making a paycheck and overtime and, making a good living, trying to provide. Now that they're making a pretty good salary, it's not about money anymore. It's about time. And I can respect that. I mean, when we came in 23, 24-year-old rookies. Most of us weren't married. We didn't have any hard debt. The cost of college wasn't like it is today. Well, now you've got people coming in, out of the military, already married, already have kids. They're 28, 29, 30 years old. And for them, it's more about time. They want to be home with their families, some form of being home with their families. And the problem is this profession isn't built that way. And I think, and I've had this conversation with Chief Garcia, we have got to find a way, whether it's through, a rotation of shifts or something like that, to allocate more of a lifestyle that's appealing to these families, or we're not going to hire anybody. And it's not just DPD. It's every major city is having a problem hiring people because it's just not a profession that people gravitate to anymore. I think a lot of it is because of their families.
Did you promote straight out of the academy?
No. So then it was 5 to 7 years before a test came. So the first test that I was eligible for, I was in the 3080s. I didn't want to leave, man. I was having such a good time. I was learning so much by making so many arrests. So I skipped that one. So I didn't promote to senior corporal till I had 7 years on. And then I didn't promote to sergeant till I had, 13 years on, 14 years on.
Yeah, 3080s. Mike Mata didn't want to be a sergeant.
No.
Yeah, so what changed your mind there? Why did you promote to sergeant?
It got to the point that I needed something different. You can only run and gun like that for so long. And so many people who had brought me in had kind of moved on. And I wanted to train, to be honest with you. I really did want to be a trainer. And I tell this to people all the time who promote and don't want to train. I say, hang on a second. Do you think you're a good cop? They'll always say yes. Well, how do you think you got that way? Somebody had to show you how to be a good cop. You owe it to the department to do the same thing to people behind you. If you're not willing to do that, then why the hell did you take the test? So I wanted to train, and I'm glad I did, because managing people is the hardest thing to do, whether it's, here on the department or now in my new career. It really is just managing people and learning how to communicate. And the first step in that is communicating with the person that sits next to you that maybe you don't quite get along with. And you got to find a way to get these instructions through their head and get them to understand why you're doing it. I've erased many a report to piss off many of a recruit, because how many times do I have to tell you to do it this way? Now, when you get off training, you can do it however the hell you want to do it, but my name will be on this first. I'm the one who's going to have to testify to it first, so you're going to write it my way. And that was hard for some people to accept, and eventually they did, or we didn't leave that parking lot.
So the senior corporal one, I get, like, pretty much everybody in the department should promote to senior corporal, but what made you go to sergeant?
That really was that I was tired of saying things need to change. We need to have better leadership, and then not doing it. Because I was in great positions. I was in major crimes at the time, working undercover. Had a lot of freedom. Had worked for a great sergeant who was Ruben Ramirez at the time, and so. I couldn't ask for a better place, but, that opportunity came, and I said, we got to stop bitching about everything broke if I'm not willing to fix things. And I do believe that sergeant is the most important rank on this department, and it needs to be treated that way. And then we need to promote the right people, because ultimately sergeants can ruin a career for somebody, or they can save a career for somebody.
So is that why you got involved with the DPA also?
Yeah, be honest with you, me and Glenn White, we had a love-hate relationship. Look, the police department has evolved and has changed, and the association needed to evolve and change, and it was stuck. Glenn was the president for almost 16 years. That's way too long for anybody to be in any leadership role, period. And so, even if you're a great leader, you need a constant change of voice and vision, right? And so I didn't agree with the fact that you could cuss somebody out on a Tuesday and then turn around and try to be friends with them and get something from them on a Thursday. You can't do that anymore. And so when I had heard that he was retiring, I was already working within the Assist the Officer Foundation. So I'd already kind of been around and seen things. And when I heard he was retiring, Fred Frazier came up to me and said, hey, would you possibly think about being on the E-board? And I said, everybody else I think I kind of saw somewhat eye to eye with. There was no major clashes with. I didn't know Ron real well, but I knew Ron was not that in-your-face, cuss you out New Yorker that Glenn was, which there was a time for that. So I don't take anything away. He did amazing work here. The DPA got a lot of things done, and there was a different mindset you had to have at that time. Well, again, things change, and so the DPA needed a more even-keeled kind of voice because, maybe we didn't serve all the department like we should have been doing. And that's that. You got to take some ownership in that, and I own that as president of this organization. I got to own the history too, but that didn't mean I couldn't change it. So that's when I jumped on the e-board.
Speaking of the Dallas Police Association, we've talked about it before, but it's been around since 1959.
Yeah,
it was started by officers, and at that time, it was the only association for officers, and it's since evolved. I didn't realize Glenn was president that long. That is a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah.
So when did you become a vice president? At what point you're on the e-board, and then you just got involved, go higher in climate, and become a vice president?
Well, I was the vice president, and unfortunately, be honest with you, what kind of pushed me, I was already, Ron didn't really like being on TV. He didn't like public speaking a lot. And so I was already doing officer-involved shootings, all critical incidences. I was already handling those things. I think mostly because teaching at the academy, I was very familiar with general orders, personnel rules, and all that. And so Ron kind of steered me in that direction. So doing that, I became pretty friendly with most of the command staff, had a good relationship with all of them. I was on TV a couple times, and then the worst day in this department's history, 7/7 happened, and I almost was the mouthpiece for not just the DPA, but DPD was having me do a lot of the spots that either they couldn't do because of maybe political pressure, or so they would call me and say, "Hey, Mike, would you mind speaking with this media or speak with that media?" I suppose because they just liked what I was doing, and so I think that's kind of what pushed me to the forefront a little bit. And then Ron said, "Mike, I think you're the next guy," and I ain't gonna lie, I was shocked. I was shocked because I wasn't ready for that. I didn't think I was the next guy. I just thought I was.
Did you always feel comfortable speaking in front of the cameras?
No,
because you looked like it.
No, I think that's what I got from the academy. I learned how to speak in front of people. You start with a smaller group, and you get a bigger group, and you get a bigger group, and then you just ignore the camera. You just start talking like you're talking to people.
Because it did actually feel weird for me to see my class advisor up there on TV speaking to all of Dallas. It's just not something I pictured you being the type of person, and all of a sudden there you were, and not only that, but doing well at it.
Oh, trust me, my mom would call me, where the hell did you learn how to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think one of the toughest parts going through 7/7 that had on me was that doing all the media and all that, I don't think I had time to grieve. I never had time to really, understand what we were going through.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I don't know if y'all remember, I'm a little embarrassed about it, but not so much. When we had the service on City Hall, man, I lost it. I mean, I had never cried before over the deaths, and I had talked to some of these, name that I can't say to be named. We rode together for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And so I had an emotional attachment to him, a strong emotional attachment to him and his family. And then, Mike Smith, I actually talked to him before he died. I mean, he told me he was going to, they wheeling him in, he's sitting up, and I see him, and he says, "Mike, just, tell Heidi I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay." I said, "Yes, sir. I'll tell her, man, you're going to be okay," and then he dies, and, I was just, just flabbergasted over it. And so when we did that memorial
vigil, the candlelight vigil,
at City Hall, man, I was up there, and I don't know what tripped me, man. I lost it, and I just could not stop. And I was trying to man up, man. I remember telling myself in the head, get your shit together, Mike. And I just couldn't. I couldn't. And I think that helped or whatever. But even to this day, it just it's the hardest. And it wasn't one day. And I think that's the kicker. It wasn't one day. It wasn't 2 days. Man, it was
weeks.
Months.
Yeah, weeks and
that
months.
we were, we were like we were going to another burial, or we were going to another mourning, and that's the only thing that really is tough on me. Is it's like every year we have to rip the Band-Aid off again, right? And I remember a few years ago, the city was like, the department was like, okay, what are we going to do for this year? And I told them, you know what, guys, maybe we don't do anything. I said, do we ever stop to think about what we're doing to the families? They feel obligated to show up to these ceremonies because we're, honoring their fallen. But what are we putting them through? Because I know what it's doing to me, and it doesn't mean that I don't love them as much now as I did then. But what I'm saying is not only are we doing it to the spouses, but what are we doing to the children? Are we really doing it for them, or are we doing it for us? And I remember talking to some of the command staff, and they agreed. And so we kind of toned it back. And instead of asking them to attend, we asked them, do you want to even attend? And if you don't, it's okay. It's okay to say no. And some of them did. And I still feel bad for some that didn't, because I think maybe they felt like they had to be there. And I don't think it was right for us to do that. So I'm glad that we still acknowledge the day. But then again, what do you say to the other 80-something people on the Walls family? We don't honor them every year either. And so, are their loved ones any less than what we have now, or than the 7-7? No, I don't think so. And so, again, are we insulting them and their memories? So I think we got to be careful that we look completely at the whole picture and not just what makes us feel good today.
Did you ever go to any of the funerals?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you did, being the official mouthpiece almost for the department. Did you stop enough to actually take time to go to those funerals?
I went to every one. Went to every candlelight vigil.
Every cemetery.
Everyone. And since I've been president, I've been to every one. A lot of people don't understand that, when an officer dies, and, because we represent, roughly 87% of the department, the likelihood that if somebody dies in line of duty, they're going to be one of our members. And some folks don't know that we give an assistance check to the family the very next day. And it's pretty sizable. And, other organizations say they do it, but they don't. We're the only ones that do it. And, some folks would think that it's just easy to hand somebody a check. It's, you're looking at these families, the spouse, you're looking at this wife or this husband, and you're just seeing somebody who's completely crushed. Just they're voided. You can look right through their eyes. They don't even know what's going on, right? And then you hand them this check, and it's not so much the amount. I mean, the amount is one thing, but it takes that worry immediately off their back of, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay these bills? Where are we going to live? And when they get that check, then they're allowed to grieve. You almost can see the glass come off their eyes, and they take a huge sigh of relief that they can actually, grieve their loss. And I carry that. I carry that too. And it's just, I guess, a responsibility that comes with the position, because I've done, I think, 33.
So we've talked to a lot of those people, either on the show or privately, and none of them has ever said anything about the check, but every one of them has mentioned Mike Mata. So,
well, I appreciate that.
Be proud of that.
I do. I appreciate that. That makes me feel pretty good. I mean, these families, I can't even just think of what they go through for the rest of their life. It never stops. It never ends, especially when you have, parents that are so involved with their kids, and they had littles. What do you tell a 3-year-old, and then when they're 13, what do you tell them, and that's another reason why, I've chose to retire, is that, like I said, my dad never got to see me have kids, and that's not going to be me. I've had a little bit of health issues, and so, the doctor said pretty much, if you just don't change your lifestyle, you're gonna stroke out within 3 to 5.
People need to sleep, Mike. That's
been
proven.
No kidding.
Mike, it's not just the line of duty deaths and just showing up to give a check. You show up when there's major injuries, whether there's illness, there's an officer involved shooting, any major incident. Man, you're showing up to scenes middle of the night.
Yeah.
You're going out there for these families. And I remember sitting with the Pentons. she was saying Mitchell was like, oh, if something happens, Mike Mata's going to be in my living room. And Kathy was saying it was surreal. Here's Mike Mata.
Yeah, like I said, I've given about 33 checks, whether on duty or off duty. A lot of them hit me. Penton, he actually worked for me. He was my troop. And, I feel bad. I feel a little responsible because I wasn't there that night. I had took that night off. And I feel responsible a little bit in two ways. One, he was my troop, and I had a responsibility to safeguard him. I feel a little responsible also because the sergeant that covered for me on that call, he's carrying a lot of guilt because, he told me, and I said, look, Sergeant, you were going to have to put somebody on that freeway at that tail end. Either it was them or it was you. Somebody, that's your job. You have to control the scene, unfortunately it was Mitchell, but if it wasn't Mitchell, it was going to be somebody else. We were going to lose somebody that day because the drunk didn't change, and so, but having to go see the Pentons and look them in the face, other than Aarons and Smith and the others from the 7-7, because at 7-7, not only did I know some of them and work with some of them, the other ones I trained in the academy. So I've never had a situation that I've known every single person. 7-7, I knew them all. And then Mitchell, him working for me. Other officers that had died in the line of duty, I knew of them, and maybe I had met them, but maybe I didn't have a bond with them. But 7-7 and Mitchell, I definitely had a bond with them, and I think the fact that she was pregnant and had a small baby, that was tough too. That was real tough.
That's a lot of grief, Mike, to absorb.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
Oh yeah, I got years of therapy coming. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. And then just the toll in your family.
Yeah.
They're grieving as well. You have a loss of, a lot of duty death. They know what you have to go do, what you are doing.
Right.
And then they're grieving as well.
Right.
You've taken a lot of time. You've had, because of the commitment, you've done a lot for this department and the officers, but you're one of your reasons you're leaving is because you want to be there for your family.
Yeah, I have not been the best husband and the best father, the last 10 years. And, God bless my wife. She stuck it out with me. And, there's a couple times I wasn't sure she was, she's got a lot of patience. She had every right to leave me a couple times, because I wasn't there. I did put the department and the membership ahead of my family. It was not going back to 7-7 again, but my daughter's birthday is on that day.
Oh.
And so, we were going to have this big party, and it took that away. And so, when your kid's, 9 years old or 8 years old, she don't understand that, and so, I've had to make that up. But, getting called out, you're right. I didn't feel right. So a lot of people say, Mike, why did you work the streets? Because we do have the opportunity here as a president of an organization, you can take business leave and not work. And I chose to continue working, probably to the detriment of my health there, a little bit insanity, because, I would work 16-hour days. But I thought it was necessary. I mean, how do you lead a organization where the majority, like 60% of your membership are working the streets every day? How do you sit there and say, I know what you're going through, I can represent you, when you're not doing what they're doing? How do you understand that? You can't. And so I felt that I owed it to them and to be taken seriously, not just by them, but by the rank and file and the command staff, that, they saw me at jail. They saw me doing traffic stops. They saw me doing the same work as everybody else. And again, I chose to put that in front of my family. And, I've done it for over 10 years, and, most of that on deep nights, and, that ain't healthy in itself. But to work deep nights and then work here during the day and then try and get about 4 or 5 hours sleep and then doing it all over again. And then the call outs, it's taken a little bit of a toll.
There's a cost to everything.
Definitely.
And I think anyone who sees someone doing a good job or devoting so much to it knows that somewhere they're paying a price on the other end. So I would think that everyone would look at you and know that you deserve your retirement. You deserve to have this off, and your family deserves it too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Last week I was in a position that I had 3 days. I actually got 10 hours of sleep each day. And I was telling the guy that I was with, he was like,
Felt like a different person.
I was like, you know, when the last time I had 10 hours of sleep, I didn't even know I was capable of that.
Yeah, I didn't know it's possible.
Much less
Physically
3 days in a
anymore.
row. It was pretty awesome. And so I said, you know, I might kind of like this second career gig. You know, it's going to take something to get used to, slowing down. I am definitely going to miss the rank and file. You know, even, and that's one thing, you know, folks were like, Mike, you didn't have to be president. You could have stayed. And no, I couldn't have, because I know me. I know people would still call me, and I would still help them because that's just who I am, right? And that's not fair to the next guy who comes behind me as president. That's taking the legs out from underneath them. They need to be president. So, you know, it's kind of like when you're done being president, you probably got to move on.
All right, Mike, I want to get into the pension.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about it earlier.
Yeah.
Tell us your role in that.
Well, that's another thing I just, walked into when the keys were handed to me. We had a huge pension issue. It's tough because I'm on both sides of the, I feel both sides of the problem here. You know, we have retirees who were sold a plan. They were promised, this is what you're going to get when they were hired, whether it was going to be in their drop or it was going to be a COLA or whatever. And then they turn around and take it from them. So, I mean, I can see how they're like, wait a minute, that's an earned benefit. The problem is we've had no court to actually define what is an earned benefit other than your actual monthly stipend that you get. On the other hand, a pension is what it is. And I'm not saying it's illegal, but just so people understand it, it's a Ponzi scheme. I mean, you have to pay the people at the top, you have to have people putting in the bottom. And those people at the bottom are hoping as they move up, more people are putting in at the bottom that they're going to have something later too. So, I also want to look at the retirees who are rightfully mad. They got every right to be mad. But I also want to say, well, who do you think's funding this? It's the younger officers that are now paying 96% of their own pension is self-funded throughout their career. That's crazy. There's nothing left to give. And so, I know a lot of people, being the older cats are mad at me because, I had to go to Austin and I had to make a deal because if not, the state was going to take it over. And it was not going to be pretty if the state was going to take it over. I mean, you think about it, there's 121 public pensions. Do you think they care about Dallas? You're just one of them. And they're going to do whatever's necessary to, stabilize it. And if that means huge cuts all the way across, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to like that. So, unfortunately, we tried to make some changes here, and the vote failed. And it's still one of my biggest regrets because I went to everywhere I could go to try to convince people pass this because you would still had a COLA. Now, it would have been 1%, 1.5% from 4%, but at least you still have it. Because I warned people, once you lose it, it will not come back. And that's where we're at. So, unfortunately, 4 years ago, we had to do a pension. I don't want to say a pension fix. It was a pension fix for today. We have improved, quite a bit as far as funding line. Not as much as we wanted to because of COVID, kind of put a halt to that. And because we haven't been able to hire a lot of people, although there's more money going in because salaries have increased. That's the only thing thank God has saved us. But, when you're used to hiring 50 in a class, 5 classes a year, and now you're having 3 classes a year, 4 classes a year of 20 in a class, it doesn't take a math major to figure out, you're losing money going into it. So, we are going to Austin to try and fix this thing again. I think ultimately the city has finally understood that they're going to have to fix this because the state has told them, if you want us to fix it, we're not paying for it. you're paying for it. So the state allocates so much money through taxes to the city of Dallas. Well, all they're going to do is reallocate the money that they would be giving them, and they're going to mandate that a huge chunk of it goes to the pension.
Yeah, that it gets allocated towards that.
Yeah, so I think the city
This will be in your budget.
Yeah, the city's figuring out this is going to happen. You can either do it your way and spread it out over 10, 15 years, or we'll do it our way and we'll get it done in 7. So the question was, can the city not to? No, they're obligated. There's a state constitution which guarantees your monthly stipend, and the city's on the hook for it. So the city's saying the state is, and the state's saying, well, you are a city-funded municipality pension, not a state pension. We have a state pension. You're a municipality-funded pension.
So are there any other major departments that are dealing with the similar issues that what Dallas PD had to deal with their pension?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Fort Worth's in the problem right now. Austin had a little bit of the problem. Houston was till about 6 years ago, and then they had a huge dump of money into theirs. Kind of where we're at now. Most of that was for Houston because the city chose to take a holiday and not pay what they should have been paying in. The problem with Dallas is Dallas has had this problem for well over 25 years. And have just kicked it to the next council, It wasn't a big problem until it got to be a huge problem. Well, now this council has finally figured out there's no more council to kick it to. It's either now or nothing, and the state is forcing them to do what they need to do.
So do you think Dallas overpromised, or were we on par kind of with everyone else as far as in the country with pensions?
No, I think this will piss off the retirees, but that's okay. I'm about to be one. Look. Police officers should have had no business running a pension. I mean, we got some police officers can't even balance a checkbook, okay? And you're going to ask to run a $1 billion pension? Really? We should have had professionals running this thing from the very get-go, and there never would have been a drop that promised a max at 12, a minimum of 8. I mean, let's be honest. In the 2006, 2007, when the crash came and everybody was looking at zero or negative from their 401, 457 or investments, the pension was guaranteeing 8%. How do you do that? Right? Well, no, how did they do that? Because they allowed police officers and firefighters on that committee, which voted that in because it was self-serving. And it was great in the .com when everybody was making money, then nobody cared. But when it goes down, it didn't go down with the market line in the 10-year yield. So we got stuck paying this amount, and I can't hate on the retirees. It was the rules that were set in. They played by the rules. The problem is we made the rules. And the city, we're on that same board. They okayed it. So, everybody's got to take an equal share in this. Well, the officers, we have paid our part of it. We have paid our debt. We cannot put any more money into this. It's time for the city to step up and do their part in owning this. So that has since changed. I mean, we still have representatives on the board, but instead of having 3 and 4, we have 1. Fire has 1. And then we have professional investors who are on this board and are making sure that we're making sound quality investments. You should never have 35 to 40% of your portfolio in real estate. No, never. Not in a pension. It should be somewhere around 8. So, but that has since been fixed. So, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm leaving because I know something that you don't know in the pensions. No. I'm leaving because it's just time, and I'm very confident that this pension's going to be just fine.
So it was 8% turnaround in perpetuity, and that's not sustainable
forever
for anything.
Yeah, I mean if a sane person looks at it, I've had a lot of financial, I have a lot of friends outside that are not cops, and I think every police officer should have more non-police friends than true police friends, not acquaintances, because it keeps you grounded. And a lot of them are in the finance business, and they're like, Mike, what the hell we are thinking? That's not survivable long term. And I'm like, you preach to the choir, brother. So, I know everybody in this room wished that we had that same opportunity, but it's not financially feasible when you're talking about a public vetted pension.
Yeah, somewhere Bernie Madoff is smiling, looking down or looking up, smiling.
This
big Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, saying, hold my beer.
Yeah. So I want to get on another touchy subject.
Yeah.
With this department is the fight to get us pay increase.
Yeah.
For years, we
tough.
know what we started with, and How'd that go for you? What role did you play?
So you started with 26?
Yeah,
26,000?
26 and change.
What were you, Joe?
Yeah, it was around
28,
20. It was around
28.
28. Yeah.
Where were you, Ken?
I think it was 36. We were big ballers.
No, you weren't. 'Cause
Rolling
I
it.
came in at 32.
Then I couldn't tell you. I just knew that I had so much money I couldn't even see straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could get appetizers before the dinner at Applebee's.
You want dessert, baby?
Yeah.
Chili's.
Yeah, go ahead, big ball. You go ahead. No, I'll take water. Yeah, the pay was a big thing, and again, we've been fighting this for a long time. And you know, and I had to answer this question a while back. Somebody asked me, Mike, why did you get on TV so much? And it really wasn't because I liked getting on TV. People forget this. You cannot have, you can't have. I mean, how are you going to regress your ills against against city council or whatever? Do we strike? No, police officers can't strike, nor should they ever have the ability to strike. Can you imagine if we could strike? I mean, every time you turn TV on, some other group of workers are striking, right? And they get this windfall of settlement. But unions are illegal in the South, especially in Texas. It's a dirty word to say union. If you notice, even if you take that last article they did on me, Dallas Morning News, they said union boss. Whenever they want to dog me out, it's always union boss. Whenever something that they like that I'm doing, I'm association president. And I always laugh about that because I've corrected them I don't know how many times. But anyway, we're not allowed to have unions. Well, if you can't strike, how do you force somebody to come to the table? Well, I got to go to the masses. And I don't like doing it because I think it puts an ugly face on the profession and on, sometimes police officers in general. There's some individuals that think we're a bunch of crybabies and whiners. But, you got to force a hand. And so, like in the pension, an increase in pay, I had to show up to every city council meeting. I showed up to their community meetings. I showed up to those and fronted them out there. And some in council understood I had a job to do. That was my job, to fight for membership and get them better pay. And sometimes I had to do it in very aggressive, in-your-face kind of ways. Now, I think I was very respectful. I never cursed at people. I never yelled at people, never screamed at people. I just killed them with facts. You want to know why we're not hiring? I'll tell you why we're not hiring. You want to know why we're losing 15% of every academy class that graduates? I'll tell you why. You know why we're losing, a large percentage of officers that are 5-year or less? You want to know why we lost almost 100 officers to Fort Worth in less than a year or 13 months? Because of the pay, stupid. It ain't that hard to figure out. And so eventually it did, I think it did get in there, and a lot of that was due to, I'll be honest, Chief Garcia had a lot to do with that. And I'll give kudos where kudos is. Even Chief Hall, said, I can only do with what I got if you're not willing to give me more to work with. So we beat him up enough, and, John Fortune, kudos to him. I'll give it to the first meeting I had with John Fortune when he came over as assistant city manager. He looked at our pay scales. He said, I don't know how the hell you keep anybody. And that was the first I ever heard of a city manager or assistant city manager even admit that. And he says, we're going to fix this. And to his word, we did. So huge shout out to John Fortune. Some people don't care too much for him. He is a man of his word.
Moving on to another touchy subject in something you're neck deep in, the activists.
They love me.
Yeah, they love you. Let's talk about it.
Well, I'm not real big into council culture. I mean, I don't give a shit. You can say whatever you want to say. Well, I mean, what more are you going to do to me? Look, I'm the first one to admit to say, are there bad cops? Absolutely there are. Are there bad cops within the Dallas Police Department? Yeah, there are. But I got news. They're bad doctors. They're bad lawyers. There's bad accountants. And I know we have a different form of responsibility because we can put people in jail. But my point is that we hire from the human race. So we're going to have flawed individuals within our profession. It's our job to root them out. And I've said it time and time again, and people may not believe it, but everyone at this table will agree. Nobody hates bad cops more than the good ones. And we will do whatever we can to get rid of that element. But there is a due process and everything. Whether folks want to admit or not, there are employee rights. You just can't fire somebody without some form of documentation or a reason why. And what the activists sometimes came against Dallas was, we had bad actors in Indiana, Michigan, Detroit, New York. I mean, they're 1,000+ miles away. It didn't even happen here, but we pay for it. We have riots here when, if you look at our record, we have reduced officer-involved shootings by more than 70% in the last 10 years. That's something, I think every shooting, is sad. Nobody, any loss of life is bad. But when you can make drops in something like that, which is completely counter to a lot of the other major cities across this country, then we're doing something right. But yet the activists didn't care. And what a lot of people didn't understand is a high majority of the percentage of people that were here stomping and dragging, yelling and screaming and tearing up this city, downtown had, hundreds of millions of dollars in damage, didn't even live in Dallas, didn't even live in Dallas County. When we ID'd and arrested some of them, they were from all over the country. They bust them here.
Even Hawaii.
Yeah.
I was grabbing guys with the IDs from Hawaii.
Because they were funded here by whoever you want to call them. I'm not here to play political, but we all know who we're talking about. But they funded and brought them here to create chaos in the largest cities across this country. And unfortunately, Dallas is a top 10 city. And we had to face it. And the problem is when you had individuals like you two guys and the other SWAT guys and officers who are spending 12 to 16 hours on the street. And then you're asking them to, in every single thing that they do, maintain a bar this high. It doesn't happen that way. If somebody's throwing bricks at you, you have to respond. And there's nothing pretty about violence. It was never created to be pretty on either side. It is a form of intimidation. And at times we have to use violence to gain a goal. We just want to use as least amount of force necessary to affect that goal. But would you rather be shot or would you rather be hit with a beanbag? Odds are, I would take the beanbag, because they're less likely to injure. Can it? Sure, it's not perfect. But, we have some officers now that are facing some legal issues that they should not be facing. They were forced and told to be there. They reacted like they were trained. When you have 3 different entities, officers from 3 different cities, and they all react the exact same way, that means it's unilateral training. How can you say it's flawed? No. What sucks is you may aim for somebody's torso or stomach area. What happens when they duck? We can't control that. But we're asked to. And so, the activists were very tough on me. And, a lot of it, some of it was Geiger, some of it was just other shootings that we had. But I said something, and I meant it till this day. I will meet anybody, any place, anytime, and have any conversation as long as it's constructive and productive. We ain't going to be, cussing each other out. I want no part of that. Some of them have taken me up on it. We've had them out here, stomping and dragging out here. And I said, come on in. Let's have coffee. And, maybe we'll agree. Maybe we won't agree. But at least we'll understand each other's point of view.
What are some of the easiest to deal with that you've
who I really liked? Smash the Topic.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great fan of mine. He didn't like me too much. But he came by one time and he said, Mike, I'd like to interview you. And I think he fully thought that I was going to say, hell no. I said, come on, bring it on. Well, because what did I have to hide? I'm going to fight for the officers. And if he's got hard questions, I'm going to answer the best that I can. Some questions I can't answer just because it's not in my purview to answer. But I'll answer up for this organization. I'll answer up for the membership and for the officers. Somebody has to fight for him. So, but he's a really good guy. He really is.
He definitely has a leaning towards the other side, but he's always been, in my opinion, fair towards us.
Yes.
If you say something, he takes you at your word, and he's never been just malicious and trying to attack people. It's always been he reports what he sees.
Yep.
And he's upfront about that. It's like this is my opinion. This isn't what actually happened or anything. He's very fair about what he does.
Yeah, he was very fair, and he did ask me some very hard questions. But a lot of the questions that he asked was just lack of knowledge. It wasn't because I'm not saying he was stupid. He just didn't have the police knowledge of why we do what we do. He didn't understand we train that way. He didn't understand that's policy that we operate this way. He didn't understand why it's policy, and so I think my my training in use of force and teaching at the academy, going back to the academy, helped me to be knowledgeable about that. And so I was, a lot of the times when I spoke to the activists and all that, it's hard to argue facts, not statistics. Anybody can tilt statistics, but facts are facts. And so when you can show them that it says it here on page 11 of General Orders 900s right here, that's why officers do that.
And he would actually turn around and then share that information with everybody. So I really appreciated the things that he did.
Yeah, I gave him the general orders, and I said, you can look it up. And that's the thing that bothered me about Chief Hall. People want to say, and activists jumped on this, that I hated her, I was against her. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, when she got selected, did I know she was the 6th person on the list and got selected? Yeah. Okay, but what am I supposed to do about that? She's already selected. Okay, so she's going to be our chief. So what I told my e-board, I said, look, we need to embrace this. She's going to be our next chief. Our department was in the lowest of lowest that I've seen it in a very, very long time. She has got to succeed. So we flew to Detroit. We were at her retirement party there. We welcomed her here. I had many conversations with her on back channels saying, look, I know how the optics have to look. We don't have to be friendly. But we can have the bat phone kind of theory. Just call me or whatever. I'll call you. Run things by me. Not for permission, but just for perspective on history, on what will work, what won't work, why I think it won't work. And, I said, because politics play a very heavy hand in policing in the city of Dallas and leadership. And it made me laugh because she told me, Mike, I know politics. I deal in Detroit politics. And I wanted to say, that ain't Texas politics. Michigan is a lot different than Texas. And so we did everything we can to try and help her and assist her. And she just would turn me down at every turn. And then when she got here and she got rid of chiefs like Tittle, she got rid of John Lawton, I knew this was not going to work out. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm a chief coming in, I'm going to look at the ones that ran against me and say, look at their value and say, look, I need to succeed because I have no knowledge about policing Texas, policing in Dallas. So I'm going to take those individuals that ran against me if they were quality, and I'm going to keep them on board. And I'm going to tell them, hey, look, I'm only going to be here 3 to 5 years. And after me, it's going to be somebody else. If I succeed, you succeed. If you're not the chief here, you're going to be a chief somewhere else. So let's all, put the bullshit aside, put the hard feelings to the side, and let's make this thing work. She didn't do that. She got rid of all the institutional knowledge that was here, the good stuff. And Chief Tittle, and I think everybody in this room would agree, hopefully, that Chief Tittle is one of the finest chiefs that we have ever had because he went straight from here and is doing an amazing job in Richardson. And so when that happened, I knew, oh, man, we got problems. We got problems. So when Garcia got here and did the absolute reverse, I said, I think this is going to work.
Well, I'm going to go back real quick to the 2020 riots.
Yeah.
So can you kind of give your perspective on, we were seeing it across the country, it escalating. We knew it was coming, and it was at the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
Everything was social distance. You couldn't even have more than 2 people in an elevator.
Right.
But everything seemed to go on pause during the protest and the riots. And then can you kind of give your perspective of you already talked about the operators that are in trouble right now, but can you kind of talk about go into more on that?
Well, I think the problem with the riots is they were so polarizing, and it almost forced you to pick a side if you let it. And I had this conflict with Chief Hall. When we had the protest outside of City Hall, and there was all the kneeling and the marching and all that, I said, Chief, I don't think we should do this because you're choosing a side. The police department is supposed to be apolitical. The rule of law is the rule of law. It doesn't pick a side. It's right or wrong. And if you choose a side, you're pushing your personal opinion onto the greater of the Dallas Police Department, then you might have some people that believe, like I 100% believe in respecting every culture, every heritage, and every color, okay? But I didn't believe in the mission statement of the BLM. It was destruction of the core value of the home, of the husband and a wife. And I'm not saying that a family can't be a single mother. What I'm saying is what works best for a child, to have not only a mothering figure there, but a male role model, whether it's a father or a brother, whatever. You've got to have that, because we all know when dealing with gangs, they will go find that role model if you don't present that role model. And that when they go find it, it's usually somebody who's trying to use them. And so I went to the protest because I felt I needed to. Okay. But my thing was, when you started to march as an organization, okay, we believe in free speech. We protect the Constitution of the United States. We uphold it, right? So I asked her, well, what happens when somebody wants to get in your march and is holding a sign that is derogatory to what your message is? What are you going to do to them? She was like, well, we'll ask them to leave. How do you do that? You're supposed to protect the Constitution. Everybody has a right to protest. Even if you don't like it, they have a right to. So you have to allow that person to walk with you. Or why are we here? That's our job. And so it went back and forth. And, I didn't like the fact that there was individuals that got up there and pretty much just said that we're a racist organization. Really? No, we're not. Do we have bad cops? Yeah, we do. But the mission, the premise of this organization is we have individuals that risk their life every single day for somebody they have absolutely no contact with or know, and they don't care. They could care less what color they are. They're doing it because it's their calling. And you're going to sit here and get up on a stage and tell them that they're racist? Get out of here. So I left, and, I took a little heat for that or whatever. But I think we have to be consistent, But on the other hand, we were the first organization when George Floyd was killed. We were the first organization that came out and made a political, made a positive statement, and our statements were just clear. We had signs that says, we hear you, we see you, we respect you. I think those are 3 statements that law enforcement should be saying to every single citizen they protect, right? And it had nothing to do with whether I thought he killed him or not. It had everything to do with I don't believe they followed good policy. How do you sit there and, kneel on a guy, put weight on a guy, whatever. You're holding him down, and you've got dozens and dozens of people saying, get him help, and you just ignore them like they're not even standing there. What does that do to the profession, right? That's the message I was saying. You have to treat better. You have to treat people better than that. Not just the person you're arresting, but the individuals who are watching you, because that's the people that you have to answer to. That's the public. So, the activists, there were certain ones I think that made a living off hating me. I made no money off protecting officers' rights. Okay. Some people out there make a living off chaos, off riots, and off division. And I don't think this country is going to move forward till we call out those individuals. And are they really helping, or are they hurting? And are they making a dime off deaths? And they are. They're making a lot of dimes.
So during those protests, Danny, you responded, and as well as Kent. And Mike was, you're neck deep in it too from the association side and the department side. I want to go into that. We haven't really talked much about this incident. We talked a little bit on, Matt, and you talked about it, touched on it briefly during one of the episodes. But how tough of a job was it to deal with the administration and juggle all that? And also, you got to show support for this side, but also you're dealing with an administration over there that you actually work for. You work for the department.
Right. Well, I had to make sure every time I got on TV that I said that I'm the president of the Dallas Police Association. I had to make sure that was differentiated to keep myself out of trouble. But, the history of DPD and labor organizations, as they've given us pretty much a lot of grace at time, and say, as long as you're representing your group, you pretty much have carte blanche. You just, you can't directly insult, people, which I don't think I ever did that, especially leaders, city leaders. You got to show respect. I think it was tough, not just because we had the activists and the riots going on, but, we also had, like the one of the things that was completely unnecessary was the Vice incident. It's the same thing. And Chief Hall came in and she wanted to make a statement, and that statement was, I'm here to clean up this town. And the problem is she took the wrong group, being Vice. I mean, if you have 23 individuals who all do their reports and do their investigations the exact same way, that's not an employee problem. That's a training issue. That's a policy issue. And we knew it was a policy issue because they were already implementing changes for the last year and a half. So how do you sit there and turn around, no, we have crooked cops? No, you don't. It was amazing to me that Chief Hall didn't understand that when you're in Vice and you go into an illegal gambling operation, you have to gamble. She was like, that's illegal. How are you doing it? How are they going to know you're a cop if you're like, I'd like to bet, but I ain't going to bet. I'm just going to watch. No, you've got to gamble, and nobody gives you a receipt, for the money you lost.
Purchasing drugs is illegal to be in possession,
Same
but we got to
thing.
do it undercover.
Exactly, and they try to rationalize it. Well, when you buy drugs, you actually have something in your hand. Okay, well, when you gamble, you went in there knowing it's a gambling operation. You have to gamble to make a case. Anyway, it was completely ridiculous, and to label those officers and those supervisors as criminals, and then for it to take 18 months, and then to really come back with nothing other than administrative paperwork issues that they already knew was a problem, and then hand out 10, 12, 15 days off. And then that's in the middle of the the activist issues too. It was almost like I was fighting a very, very small percentage of the public that had a completely unrealistic and sometimes purposeful reason of hating on us. And then I had a command staff that was completely out of control, that just weren't using common sense. And the lower command staff, I mean, they got to play ball. I'm not mad at them. I mean, they got to do what their chief tells them to do. They can't, there's no such thing as a mutiny. So, I can't be mad at them. And so it was just, it was like every day I was almost getting up, just waiting. Okay, what's going to happen today? And like I said, when I took this organization over, nobody gave me a handbook that I could go look at Section 5. Okay, civil unrest. This is how you do that. Or you fighting with command staff. This is how you do it. Just had to play it by ear. And I think, to be honest with you, the only way I survived through most of that was because I really did have good relationships with the lower command staff. I was raised with them. So I knew their heart and they knew my heart. And they knew I had a job to do.
So that's interesting, the relationship you had with the lower command staff. And you're kind of relating this to the relationship you had with them during the riots. What about the relationship with the DA during the riots? Was there any?
Yeah, we got a love-hate relationship too. John and I he used to sign warrants for me when he was a judge. You got to remember, John was a Republican, not once, but twice. A lot of people don't know. People flip parties like they're flipping bacon. It's just whoever's in power, right? And so, I've known John for a very, very long time. And, to his credit, he's done some really progressive, especially the drug court has done some amazing progressive things. And it's a good thing. But sometimes he goes too far. Prime example is anything, under $700, we're not going to prosecute for. He called me and said, hey, I'm looking at doing this. I said, John, if you want to do that, you can do that with your intake attorney, your intake prosecutors. They can read a case and say, no, we're not going to prosecute. You don't got to get on TV. But it was about political. That's where the political hands get in. He wanted to get reelected, wanted to ensure that he was going to beat Toby, and wanted to make sure that he was going to win. So I'm going to throw this out there that shows I'm progressive, that I'm trying to help the downtrodden and the poor. No, you're not. You're hurting. You're hurting the mom and pop store that doesn't have a retirement. They don't have a pension. Everything they have is in that four walls of their little stop and go, right? And what are you saying? You're telling the public that you can go in there and rob them for $699 worth of stuff, and we ain't going to do anything about it. I told them, you know what you're going to have? You're going to have murders, because that mom and pop store can't take losses like that. At some point, it's their legal right to defend their property. Somebody's going to pull a pistol, and either you're going to force that shop owner to commit murder, or the bad guy's going to murder them.
And I really thought that, like you said, it'd be in the intake that they would just dismiss these.
Which we didn't care. I mean, they've been doing that
but
forever.
no, it was like you said, we were not arresting. And I saw it one day when I was listening to the radio, and I overheard a call get dispatched about a woman who had her purse, her shoes, and everything else stolen while she was working out. And the officers caught the guy within probably 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And returned the stuff to the owner, and then said they were cutting him loose. And I thought, what is going on? And then the officers were like, oh, well, we just don't arrest if it's under $700.
$700 is a lot of damn money.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
is.
that's a lot of
Or it could be
Snapple.
something really important to you as well.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
a lot
that
of
just
Snapples and,
shoplifting, though?
and Slim Jims. That's a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of shit.
and
I've
go-
never spent $700 in
Well,
a
and not only
convenience
that,
store.
and you know, the activists would always say, "Well, it's that mother stealing Similac and stealing Pampers." There are a lot of charities throughout Dallas and Dallas County that will assist exactly that.
Exactly.
And every single one of us in this room has bought something for somebody that, you know, a citizen that you saw that didn't have enough money or they needed something. I've paid out of my pocket.
And it goes
all right?
back to what you said. It's more than $700.
Yeah.
What it's saying is free reign for you guys.
Yeah.
Free reign for you criminals to do whichever you want to do.
Exactly. And, you know, you never looked at the downside. And he always come back with, well, our statistics are showing. I'm like, your statistics are saying that because people didn't call. Why would they call 911 if you're not even going to arrest anybody? So you don't have any offenses because they knew the cops weren't going to do anything. They just stopped calling. And so, you know, again, you know, me and the DA, you know, we go at it sometimes. And again, it ain't personal. I just told him, you know, stop doing stupid shit, and I wouldn't have to get on the TV and blow you up. You know, I think John Creusot has a good heart. He does. One of our arguments, he says all the time, is, Mike, I can't control the judges. You know, he's right. Judges are elected. He can't control the judges, but they work in his house. If he thinks a judge isn't doing their job or is failing, like this last shooting we just had, I mean, that guy who shot that whole family, not only was he wearing an ankle monitor, he was on probation for a lot of violent criminal acts against that family and against that victim already. What the hell was he doing out in public? He should have been in jail. If not in prison, he should have at least been in jail on the ag assault with a deadly weapon that he already had family violence against the victim. But he wasn't. He was out walking around. Well, you know, that's going to come blowing up this week. And I would expect John Creusot to get on TV and say, and call out that judge who put that person on probation and say, you failed the public, not the police. You failed to do your part of this job. We put him in jail. It's the other harm of the justice system that they have to protect the public, and they are failing the public.
What kind of back and forth did you have over the SWAT operators that?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
A lot. You know, look, you know, how do you consider? So the whole argument here is that the 40 millimeter, because it is a primer instrument, it has a small primer which discharges a beanbag through a barrel because it has to be accurate. You know, it ain't going to have a slingshot. And so to hit your target. Well, because it has a primer and an igniter and a barrel, they have said it's a deadly weapon. Okay, it is titled less lethal for a reason. We are trying to preserve life. How are you then inferring that because it has three same things as a shotgun that it's a deadly weapon? Really? You know, again, it's political. It's you know, and they waited years to bring these things out. Why? To appease. You know, you just saw the Austin DA drop 21, charges on 21 different officers. Why? Because they knew it was bullshit. And we're still doing it here in Dallas. For what purpose? You know, to ruin these officers' lives when they were out there in the worst times of their career. You can't train for that. You cannot train for that because it's never reality. You know, SWAT has the hardest time because they train. The problem is you can't train for every single situation. And that's why, you know, after they have, when they go out, they have a debrief because there's always something you can improve. There's always something that didn't go exactly right because we can't control what the actor's response is.
You've dealt with the DA in fighting for their officers' rights and trying to clean that stuff up. What about when you were under the gun?
You know, I took a lot of heat for that, and what people fail to understand is that I had been answering, officer-involved shootings. I've been doing them for 7 years. I've done it the exact same way for 7 years. The DA had never had a problem with it. They have their own DA investigators out there. They had never had a problem with it because they understand that cops still have constitutional rights. If you're going to tell an officer that he doesn't have constitutional rights and he doesn't have due process, you need to tell them that when you hire them, not after they're involved in a situation. Again, it wasn't my personal opinion. I tell people already, to this day, I have never had a conversation with Amber Geiger about what happened. I have never asked her because it's none of my business. I've got to stay above that because it's not about my personal opinion. When on that night, those command staff, just like I had done for the 7 years, I go straight to command staff. Well, the first thing I did, you'll see the video, I walked up, I poked my head in the car to her, and I just asked her, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" And she was like, "I'm okay." I said, "I'll be back." Went straight to command staff. They're all standing around, dusting off their stars and all that, and bars and clovers. And I said, "What are we dealing with here? Is this an officer-involved shooting?" And they said, "Yes, Mike, it is." I said, "So this is an officer-involved shooting. We are treating it like an officer-involved shooting." Absolutely. Because it was a lot different. It was 4 flights up, 300 yards away. There was no crime scene really, like right in front of you. So I couldn't make a judgment call that, oh, yeah, this is an officer-involved shooting. It wasn't a call where you came into a burglary in progress or somebody fired at you and you fired back. It was completely different. So I went to the people who were supposedly had the knowledge, and that was the command staff. And they told me, this is an officer-involved shooting. I said, okay, we have a protocol. I followed protocol. I talked to the attorneys. I knew that the attorney was about to call her. So she was invoking her attorney-client privilege right there. And so when I went to the car, she was in the car. I asked unfortunately, I put another sergeant in it. I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't think anything would come of it or whatever. And I said, hey, whose car is that? And she said, it's mine. And so I wanted to be professional. If it was a senior corporal, then I would have just done it myself. But her being the same rank as me, I was trying to show her professionalism. And I said, would you mind turning off your car? Her attorney's going to be calling her now. Okay. She turned it off. And so they want to say I ordered her. I didn't, a sergeant can't order a sergeant. I just asked her to do it, and she did it, believing that she was doing it right. And I know I was doing right. And sure enough, she did have that conversation with her attorney, and they made a big stink about that I was, changing. Well, I got news. When I was in major crimes and I was investigating and interrogating a criminal in the box, we got the cameras on and the recorder on. When they say, I'm done talking, I want an attorney. We don't keep talking. They said this thing in trial. They were like, well, Mike Mata's not an attorney. Who is he to, decide this and that? We do that every day. We know the Constitution. We don't violate it. If that's the case, why I would have just kept talking to the hook who had committed the crime. I don't care if he asks for an attorney. No, I have to respect and defend the Constitution. And even if I don't like this guy, he has due process rights. And we stopped talking. And it isn't any different for an officer. So they made a big stink about that. They made a big stink when I got her out of the car. Well, I got her out of the car because in the car she had her companion officer. And any conversation I have with her, I wanted to keep the companion officer out of it so they wouldn't have to answer for it. I brought her out of the car because people kept coming and talking to her. And I told her, stop talking to all these people, all their officers. And the officers, they were trying to show good heart. They were just checking on her because she was very well liked. But they were checking on her. The problem is every time an officer talks to her, they are going to be called down to IED. They are going to have to go down to homicide and write a statement. And so you're just creating more work for the detectives, right? Creating more work for them. So stop it. This ain't the time.
So there's a grand jury referral on that incident. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Again, so political pressure came and, because, and I'll just say it, because I don't think the command staff had the courage to just be honest with the public and say, this is policy, this is practice, he didn't do anything wrong, the officer has constitutional rights, the officer has due process just like every other citizen, and just explained it to them. And again, maybe people wouldn't agree, But attorneys out there would say, yeah, there would be plenty of attorneys on TV arguing, and they would say, yeah, they got due process. They got to protect that or whatever. They didn't do that. And because they, chose to investigate me and all this mess, what did it do? It lessened the credibility of the department. It lessened the integrity of the Dallas Police Department, because now I was the face of the Dallas Police Department. I wasn't Mike Mata. I wasn't Mike Mata, president of the association. The activists painted me as, see, there's your dirty cops in DPD, and they're as high as the president of the association, the big bad union boss. And so that was a huge failure on the department to do the right thing. That's what pissed me off more than anything. I mean, was I worried? I ain't gonna lie. In the society that we live in, you can indict a ham sandwich. I was worried. It was very, very difficult on my family. My son got it. My daughter didn't really get it. My wife really got it. And how do you tell your wife it's going to be okay? She's watching TV. She's seen me getting blown up. She's hearing all these, activists, and then, attorneys who are really activists. They just happen to be an attorney too, saying that I was, crooked and needed to go to prison. And, they were saying that was 10 years in prison. And what really pissed me off, I had people in my own organization or people on this department that were talking shit on me, that I'd known my whole career, that couldn't even just pick up the phone and call me. Because again, it turned into a black-white thing. It's not a black-white thing. It's a right and wrong thing, and they had a problem with that. And I just thought I'd earned enough for just call me and let's talk this out. They had a problem that we gave her legal coverage. I'm bound. I don't have a choice. It's in our bylaws. If it's an officer-involved shooting, we have to cover them. If not, she was just going to sue us, and we would have to cover her, and then we're liable also. So you've got to follow your own bylaws and your own legal guidelines. You want to blame somebody, blame the goddamn department. They're the ones who said it was an officer-involved shooting. So, again, I took a beat for that, but in the end, I believed I was going to be okay. I appreciate the fact, again, in this instance that John Crusoe, did a referral, because he could have done a straight indictment. Like he's done on some other thing. I mean, he did a referral, and at least gave me a fighting chance. So I will say, the day that the indictment was coming back or not or whatever, my wife called my mom and said, "Well, what's Mike's favorite food?" I mean, it was almost like it was my last meal or whatever. And my mom said it was a Mexican dish called fideo, and so she gave the recipe to my wife, and God bless her, she tried. My kids wanted no part of it, and I ate the whole bowl. It wasn't quite like Mom made, but everybody has a love language, and that was her love language for me that day. So, I wish I didn't go through that.
It'll go in the intro line. You can indict a ham sandwich these days.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, and so just so they kind of understand, and a referral is when they just take the case and they present it to the grand jury, and usually the DA will give an opinion. We think this is a strong case. We don't think this is really a strong case, and also, your attorneys can provide a grand jury packet, and it's kind of an explanation in their opinion of your presentation of the facts. Rather than just a full indictment is, you're charged with usually it's a felony, and you're going straight to trial. And a lot of times they'll say, we're going to indict and we'll let the trial figure it out, which I was worried about, because sometimes grand juries are like, we don't want this on our plate because it's too hot. Let's let them. And then now I'm going through a year and a half of real hell, and so.
And a lot of officers go through that.
A lot of officers go through that
now.
These days, yeah.
Yeah, when they
crazy.
When they shouldn't even been indicted, but it was nobody wants to do the right thing. Some weak ass people.
So the grand jury referral and this whole charge against you, it was from the Botham Jean incident with Amber Geiger.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, this was tough, man. It's look, do I think Amber Geiger has to pay a penance for actions? Absolutely. An innocent man lost his life who did not deserve to die, plain and simple. Was there malice in her heart to intentionally and knowingly kill somebody? No. That's murder. We all know as cops what murder is, okay? What she did was manslaughter, right? She was negligent. There was an opportunity for her to disengage, and she should have, but she didn't, okay? That's not intent and malice. That's not going to the trunk, getting your gun, coming out and saying, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get my trunk, come back, do it. That's murder, okay? So I will say this. There's two things that will have affected me, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. So the day after, my phone rang, and it was Botham Jean's brother. And at first I didn't believe it was him. And then something told me, and I just, I don't know if y'all are religious or not, because at that time I would have thought people were pranking me. But something told me, and I believe it was a hand of God. Listen to this guy. Don't hang up on him. And then he started talking, and I started to figure out this really is his brother. And he says, I hear you're, kind of the union boss or whatever. And I said, well, I am president of the association. And he said, my mom is coming in. Would you like to talk to her? And I said, absolutely. Please let me talk to her. And, I wasn't going to have any answers for her because I didn't have any answers. And maybe this is selfish, and if it is, I'll own it. I'm selfish. I needed to tell her that I was sorry. I needed to tell her that the members of the Dallas Police Association, the members of the Dallas Police Department are sorry, that this was not, he did not deserve to die. I needed to tell her, and I've said this many times in a lot of my media issues, that, that if my son grew up to be the caliber of person that Botham was, then I'm a success as a father. He was an extraordinary young man who had a long life ahead of him and had done amazing things and probably would have done even more amazing things. And unfortunately, horrible things sometimes happen to great people. And that happened to him. But, I was overjoyed to the point that I would absolutely have an opportunity just to tell her that we were sorry and that we will do our best to get her answers that I think she needs, right? And so they were going to call me the next day, and we were going to work this out. And I had told my wife, and, I was worried about what I was going to say. And, I had talked to the attorneys. They're like, Mike, I don't know if you should do this. And, attorneys be damned, I was going to do it. If it got bad or whatever, then I'd get up and walk out. If I got my ass kicked, I got my ass kicked. I don't care. But I needed to look her in the face and let her know that we felt pain for her. We were not ugly people, right? So anyway, I waited for the call. Never got the call. Come to find out, a certain attorney that I won't name, Lee Merritt, got involved. And I truly think they took sadness that was in her heart and just, wanting to just have questions answered like every parent would want. And they turned it into anger, and they turned it into something that she didn't need to carry. And so I've always regretted not being able to at least have the opportunity. And again, it might be selfish on my part, but I really wanted to look in her face and in her eyes and tell her that I was truly sorry, that her son was an amazing person, that he didn't deserve to die. And, whatever happened out of that would have happened out of that. So it was unfortunate that didn't happen because I really wanted it to. And the second thing that I witnessed, and I think everybody who saw this has to agree. I saw the most touching moment of grace that I have ever seen in my life. When that young man, his little brother, asked to hug Amber. And, how is a person that young have such a giving heart to understand the guilt and the pain that is placed upon Amber, that believe that maybe she did pull that trigger, but she's regretted every moment, since then. You could see that. And he felt that he needed to relieve her of some of that pain, and by giving her a hug. And kudos to the judge for allowing it and then taking the beating afterwards. Yeah. I mean, who in their right mind could say she shouldn't have done that and not given her a Bible? I mean, what society have we turned into that it's throw stones, and hang them all without any compassion whatsoever? I mean, lives were ruined out of this. And to watch that young man with the fullest of hearts, and I believe God laid hands on him and said, I'm going to help heal you. I'm going to help heal Amber. But moreover, the millions of people that saw that either live or afterwards on video, how does that not touch your heart and put a tear in your eye? You're unhuman if it didn't. And I think it showed everybody watching that bad things can happen, but out of those bad things, people can show compassion for each other. That's what humans are supposed to do. And so it was one of those wonderful things I ever seen. And it broke my heart afterwards to where, some people in his own circle were just dogging that young man for doing that. I mean, really? I mean, if anything, we should all praise him for taking weight off all of us, and showing us that there is grace in some of this youngest individuals that walk this earth is more spiritually and a better person than, 75% of us that are walking this earth. I don't know if I could have done that. So.
Beautiful moment.
Amazing moment. And I think it fills everybody's heart just when you think about it, because especially with all the crap that's going on now, it's almost polarizing. Everybody's, for some reason, everybody's got to pick a side. You got to hate this person because he's a D or they're an R or whatever. And they're forgetting about, what truly makes us people, and that is caring about the person that sits next to us. And he did that. And when far majority of the public wouldn't have the internal strength to do that, and that young man did. Yeah.
So you talked about earlier about the department kind of being at a low point.
Mm-hmm.
Just with everything that's going on in the country, pandemic, leave it at coming on the heels of 7/7, 2016, healing after that, pandemic, riots, destruction of the city, indictments of officers, and then there's an opening for the chief job.
Yeah, and he's coming from California.
And we hear California's coming. Talk about that.
Man, let me tell you what. I had heard from inside people that he was the finalist, and I was watching all the interviews, and I had heard that they sent a headhunter for him, and usually to me that means that they have an agenda. They're looking for something specifically, and then the fact that he was from California, I was like, oh hell, I'm going to retire. I could not. If he'd have come here pure California and all that, I would not be here today. I would have been gone. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it again. Not after Hall. But what was funny or was different, everybody I called, and man, I called everybody. I called LULAC, I called the NAACP, I called all the major churches, the pastors there. Nobody had a bad thing to say about this guy. Nobody. I called the association there, glowing. That's usually a bad sign. Usually when they got nothing bad to say about a chief, they're trying to get rid of their trash, right? And I think they kind of felt that apprehension in our conversation because a week later, they flew to Dallas. 3 of their board members flew to Dallas to convince me that he's the right guy. And I'm like, okay, now they're wasting money. This guy must really be bad, or maybe he's the real deal. And so I started doing a lot of research. I mean, if he's that bad, there's got to be, headlines about him fighting with, the union and fighting with the membership and all this. Nothing. And nobody can scrub their media that good. I even had our PR people, get their professionals and dig, and nothing. And so, I had to, maybe believe a little bit. Now I'm watching the videos of him, interviewing, and he's just knocking it out of the park. He's saying the right things. And he's not just saying the right things to get hired by the, command staff or the city leadership. He's really backing, saying a lot of positive things about rank and file, about hard decisions that have to be made, about, judging people on split second, that we have to think about they have constitutional rights, all those words that I'm like, really?
I I was in Toronto,
Yeah.
for an intelligence convention. I was a guest speaker there, and I had people coming up to me there saying, "You know Eddie Garcia?" Well, obviously I'm in doubt. Yeah, but do you know him? Well, he's friendly enough, and that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's an animal. Like, he just goes and goes, and he's super smart. Yeah, that guy's amazing. And these were people from different provinces of Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is when you look at him, he's got the sleeves of tattoos and all this and all that. Y'all don't know this, but he's a bean counter. He's a nerd. He's a number nerd. Huge number nerd. He loves stats. He loves numbers. He loves math. And that's why when you see him when he talks to council, in the beginning you had a couple of council members that kind of came after him. Well, he cut that shit down real quick because he'll kill you with facts, numbers, boom, off the top of his head. He'll give you shit that you can't argue with because he does his homework. And so, but anyway, he got here and, another one of the E-board members who's been here a very, very long time, he's like, Mike, don't get sucked in. Mike, don't get sucked in. It's too good to be true because I'm just eating this up, especially after going through it all I went with. And, him and I would meet for coffee. We would have a drink. I mean, all these things. And we would have very serious conversations. And, I mean, he was straight up honest with me. I'm going to tell you now, I thank God he's received a little bit better compensation recently because I argued that I told him I have had numerous cities call me asking if he has a contract because you've got a lot of major cities that crime is shooting through the roof. They're getting new elections, new mayors, and they all have to make a splash. So they need to bring in somebody who has a proven record. Well, there's only one chief in the top 15 cities of this country that has dropped crime 3 years in a row, and his name is Eddie Garcia. And I promise you, they're coming for him. And, I can't blame the guy. Chiefs only have so much of a shelf life. He's got to do what's right for him and his family. And so am I going to be mad at him because some other city's going to double his salary? You know what? You earned it. Go. It sucks for us, but you know what? We should have doubled his damn salary then. And we did, and we haven't done that. So, I think a lot of people are going to come looking for him. A lot of major other cities, a lot of corporations. Wouldn't be surprised if FIFA doesn't come calling. I mean, think about it. He's from a Latin country, speaks Spanish. He's, president of the Major Chief Association, so he's got a shoe in every major city. I mean, that's written for the NFL, Major League Baseball, basketball, NBA, you name it. So it's going to suck if that happens because he is the best chief I've had since I've been here, and I had Kunkel. And so, he's something else.
No, I agree. He's the best that I've worked under, and it would be, we better enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah.
Because nothing lasts forever.
You just don't find a chief genuine like that.
No.
It's very difficult because sometimes chiefs feel like they have to maintain this stature of not being what the worker bees. We can't associate together, whatever. No, you can. You can be real, especially if, you're asking them to risk their lives. You better be goddamn real with them, and he is. So it's much appreciated.
Well, besides Chief Garcia, what about you as far as accomplishments? I mean, if you're looking back at this long career,
yeah.
I've enjoyed listening to you because this is even more than I even knew about you. I really do appreciate you getting on the microphone with this podcast to share this. I've always looked at this podcast as not just an opportunity for officers to tell their story, but also in a way to preserve DPD history. I feel like you've definitely made a footprint or a signature mark on this department. You will be someone I always look at as being an icon for DPD for me. But looking at your entire career, besides being the class advisor for 293, what do you feel most accomplished about?
Yeah, that's a tough question. It really is. First of all, as far as being a cop, I'm going to kind of break it up. Being a cop, I hope that I made lives better. I hope that in my days of patrolling Southeast and Pleasant Grove and Oak Cliff and Central and Northeast Division and Southwest Division, I hope I affected people's lives that made their life better. I don't want to say that I hope I saved lives. I mean, I think that's, I don't know. I just hope I affected lives that help them have a better life. Maybe I changed a kid's direction. Maybe I helped a spouse, a battered spouse, find a way out. And then maybe I just built more confidence in the department from the community that I served. I was somebody that maybe the community looked at and said, that Mike Mata cop, he's all right. He's a good guy. So professionally, I hope that's what I have as far as community. Professionally, as far as the department, I hope I was first of all, a good trainer, and I had some really good recruits that I trained. But I hope I was a good leader. And in other words, I like I said earlier in this podcast, I became a sergeant because I felt that I needed to help make effective change on the department. And I hope I have done that. I hope that people that I supervised felt like I was a good supervisor for them, that I cared more about them than I cared about the number of arrests or traffic stops or whatever. So I hope that worked in my favor. As far as the organization, this organization has a history. There's a reason why there's a BPA. There's a reason why there was a LPOA, now NELIO, and then at that time, FOP 588. At some point, whether it was verified or not, some individuals felt like they were not represented well, that they did not get the representation they deserved, because why would they create another organization? And, even if some folks may not believe it, they believed it. That's what makes it valid, And so we've got to own that as a police association, the longest serving police association, the largest police association. We've got to own that. And so, I don't think people, I would hope that they didn't intentionally exclude people. Do I think that it did happen? Probably. Do I think there were some people that wasn't helped because of the color of their skin or their creed or their nationality or their sexual preference? Probably. Yeah. Again, we're human, and there's assholes everywhere. And that could have been in the leadership of this organization. So I hope that during my tenure, both as a VP and as a president, I hope that the rank and file, members and non-members, even if they're members of other organizations, believe that I would help anybody, that we are a organization of inclusion. I don't care what color you are. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care anything. All the thing that matters to me is that you wear the same uniform as I do. That's all that matters to me. So I hope that is cemented in the rank and file of the Dallas Police Department. As far as how the public sees the Dallas Police Department, I hope they just see that I'm fair as a leader. That I'm going to fight for officers when they're right. I'm going to fight to the very end. But also, when we're wrong, I'm going to own it. Somebody's got to. If you're going to have any credibility, you got to own the bad with the good and be willing to do that. It ain't fun, but it's necessary or whatever. So, I know financially the members of this organization are much better off than when I got here. Even if I'm not totally responsible for that, I played a part in that, I believe. So that's good for their lives. As far as regrets, I know I made some mistakes. And again, when I became the president, nobody handed me a handbook and says, this is how you do it. They just said, kind of figure it out. I had good support in Frederick Frazier and James Parnell and Scott Sayers and other people in the beginning that helped me through this. And I would call Ron from time to time and throw stuff off him and him giving me advice. But really, when it came down to making a decision, there's some individuals maybe in this organization that feel that at times I was somewhat led as a dictator. What they don't understand is that when you're a membership of an organization this large, sometimes you just got to make hard decisions. And you're the one who's going to own it, not them. Nobody's going to go to VPs or board members and say, why did you just... No, they're going to go to the president. So in some of those really hard decisions, it was for their own good that I took the hit on this, because ultimately I'm the one who's going to have to answer for it. It would be wrong for me to say, well, I made this decision, but the whole board and they all agreed to it. It's their fault too. No, that's not what a leader does. A leader owns it, and I was going to own it. I think the organization by a whole, I lead by community. I get everybody's opinion as much as I can, but when it comes down to it, and this is what it's hard for some of these guys to understand, you just got to make a call. You got to make a call, and you got to search your soul and figure out if it's right or wrong, and whatever it is, you got to own it. And so if you're going to do that, it's got to be a dictatorial kind of way of doing it. Being the president of this organization has been an honor, leading the men and women of the Dallas Police Association. It has truly been an honor. Has it been taxing? Absolutely it has. Has it been tough on my life? Absolutely it has. But it also has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It made me feel good. And again, selfish or not, and when somebody came to me with a problem, if I was to help them solve their problem, then I could see that I was changing their lives for the better. So, as far as my family, I've kind of made the made the statement before that that it's time. And so whenever I do all the retirement parties, and I hand as many badges to the people that are retiring, and I always ask them the same thing. I really do. How do you know it's time? Especially the last few years, because I was kind of getting an idea that I was heading my way, and they all said the same thing. As corny as it is, they said, "Mike, you just know. You just wake up one day and you know." And you know what? They're absolutely right. I mean, it was like one day, I had some health issues that kind of, when your doctor tells you, hey, look, Mike, if you don't change your lifestyle within 3 to 5 years, you're going to either have a major heart attack or you're going to have a stroke. And he was being serious. With my dad dying at an early age, I said, that's not going to be me. So that played a part in it. Another part in it was that, I sat there and said, have I accomplished as much as I think I can at this time? And, I think I have, and it's time for a younger generation. You got to know when it's time to step down. Every organization needs a new face. They need a new voice. They need new leadership. Even if your leadership is doing well, you've got to keep that. You got to keep it growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so it was time to hand this off to a younger person, who might do things a little bit different and might have a little bit more success than I had. So, again, I have not been the best father and husband for the last 10 years. I got a lot of making up to do. About to be an empty nester, so me and the wife we're gonna date again. We're gonna find a way to enjoy each other again, and most of that's on me, but we're gonna do that. And the last thing I'd want to say to the officers is, just remember, police work, it's a profession. It's not who you are. We have so many officers that think all they are is a cop. No, you're not. You're way more than that. But you have got to find an outlet outside of DPD. DPD is your life only if you let it be your life. Get involved in things outside of this department, even if it's just coaching your kids' soccer team, basketball team, baseball team. Find the human side of police work or of living, because this job, this profession, if you let it, it will kill you, whether physically, emotionally, relationship-wise. If you don't find something else out there to believe in other than this profession, because I'm going to tell you right now, when you leave, the profession will leave you. You're only as good as the day you're here. They're just going to replace you, and that's just the business. So don't let the profession replace your family. Remember that it's just a job. It's not who you are.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, and I'll pull when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder. Together we'll run up from the bottom. Yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. I'll never give up on you. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up on you.